Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. We bring you hundreds of novel audiobooks covering every genre and every kind of story you can imagine. Action? We've got it. Adventure? Absolutely. Horror? Of course. Whether it's the legendary Uchiha massacre or outrageous tales like stealing Naruto's and Sasuke's women, you'll find it here. From epic series like One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and Hunter x Hunter, to countless other adventures, our library has it all. Love novels but don't have time to read? No worries, just plug in your earbuds, sit back, and let the story take over. Good listening, and happy hearing, in half an hour, at the command center. The messenger answered promptly. Understood. You may return with your report now. Hyuga's shoe nodded. The messenger Kunoichi quickly left like someone escaping from a death sentence. Honestly. Do I seem that scary? Miharu Uchiha asked casually. You're my beloved. Tsushu replied irrelevantly. Miharu immediately giggled softly, her brief displeasure dissipating like mist. When Hyuga's shoe arrived at the command center in unhurried pace, most jonins from Western Camp had already gathered. Meanwhile, Tsukumo Hatake, newly arrived, was seated in an honored position between Shirakawa Namiko and Yakame Hamako. The three were engaged in warm conversation filled with hearty laughter. Jonin Tsushu. Toshimeki Yamanaka, his subordinate from Yamanaka clan, noticed his arrival and stood up immediately to greet him. Tsushu nodded and walked over to sit beside Toshimeki Yamanaka. Approximately 5 minutes remained before the official commencement of military meeting. Jonin Tsushu, your performance on this reinforcement mission certainly impressed us all. Tsukumo noticed Tsushu's arrival and spoke out, leading charges forward while covering retreats, winning one valorous victory after another. Truly worthy of carrying Hyuga clan's honor as Hidden Leaf Village ninja. His words silenced the previously noisy central command tent. Squad leader Tsukumo flatters too much, Tsushu responded while rising to bow respectfully, still not having warmed the seat. This is merely fulfilling a jonin's duty. Moreover, Comrade Hamako led this mission brilliantly. I am but a junior who learned from senior ninja's bravery. Not surprisingly coming from noble lineage, though such modesty seems unnecessary. Tsukumo chuckled heartily, a fair reward system is what keeps ninjas' spirits high. Your remarkable achievements warrant equivalents to success rank missions, perfectly reasonable. Whoa. The assembled jonins erupted in astonished murmurs. Such public praise in advance clearly indicated Tsukumo's full approval and recognition of this reinforcement mission. Yet for those stationed at Western Camp, Shirakawa Namiko, their Western Front commander, had actually made a terrible strategic move. After dispatching the first reinforcement unit, he failed to quickly organize a second wave of reinforcements, leading to non-stop fighting without rest and heavy losses, indirectly crippling Yakame Hamako's first squad by decimating its middle-level commanders. Although unintentional, such arrangement indeed lacked prudence. After Tsukumo Hatake rushed in, the jonin in the Western Camp originally thought this meeting would be another grand occasion where the White Fang would take command once again and lead the ninja force into battle. However, given his commendation of Hyuga's show and his unusually amiable attitude today, the atmosphere had a hint of turning a solemn occasion into a celebration, like celebrating at a funeral. The jonin assembly couldn't help but feel this wasn't something the White Fang would usually do, and that's exactly why they were so surprised. After all, Shirakawa Namiko, known as Namiko, had only just been recommended by Tsukumo Hatake while he was preparing to return to Hidden Leaf Village to assume the position of the incoming jonin unit leader. Since she'd only just taken the position, it was only natural some jonin weren't ready to accept her authority yet. Thank you for your praise, Leader Tsukumo. Hyuga's shoe naturally had no reason to deny his own merits, so he bowed politely and returned to his seat. Just then, Denzo entered, his expression dark, surrounded by several jonin. Now this is getting interesting, Hyuga's shoe gave the group of jonin following Denzo a sharp, assessing glance, sensing that things were about to become even more intriguing. Chapter 72, Crush Them. Master Denzo, it's been a long time. Tsukumo Hatake stood up energetically to greet him, warmly inviting the gloomy-faced Denzo to take the stage like a real host. Though Denzo held no particular affection for Tsukumo Hatake or the jonin assembly of the Western Camp who had publicly humiliated him, he couldn't afford to openly confront the legendary White Fang at this moment, especially since he had been sent here by the Hokage as an envoy. Thus, he simply muttered in response and strode up onto the platform, taking the seat that Shirakawa Namiko had courteously offered him. Once seated, Denzo scanned the room, taking in every expression around him. Hyuga's shoe, whom Denzo regarded as a symbol of Hidden Leaf Village's stubborn traditionalists, was someone he deeply admired for his talent but considered an eyesore nonetheless. Moreover, as a member of the Hyuga branch house marked with the caged bird seal, he was completely unredeemable and definitely among those slated for elimination after the war. As for the other jonin present, any who met Denzo's gaze directly would be remembered one by one, marked for post-war retribution. Hiruzen's still too soft. He'd never be able to hold Hidden Leaf Village together without me. After surveying the crowd with a chilling stare, Denzo felt fairly satisfied. Only about a third of the Jonin dared to meet his eyes. Especially pleasing was how all the newly assigned Jonin from the village avoided his gaze obediently, appearing particularly docile. Now that Lord Denzo has arrived, all senior Jonin from headquarters are assembled. Shall we begin the meeting? Shirakawa Namiko threw out a firm but subtle jab as she gave up the second-best seat. Following Lord Sakamo's guidance, today's Jonin military meeting will primarily discuss the next phase of our operational plans. Everyone is encouraged to speak freely based on their understanding of current developments and enemy intelligence, contributing wisdom toward our inevitable great victory. Captain Shu, as the most outstanding contributor during our recent reinforcement operation, would you please share your thoughts on the Hidden Sand Village Ninja with us and our fellow Jonin? Sakamo Hatake immediately followed up, particularly for our newly arrived Jonin comrades. They're especially eager to learn more about the strength of the Sand Village's shinobi. Sand ninja are fierce and swift, charging recklessly into battle when fortunes favor them, yet easily collapsing under adversity. Hyuga Shu paused briefly before carefully choosing his words. What's more, because the Sand Village lacks resources, they're brave but not very enduring. Once dragged into a protracted conflict, they usually lose heart and retreat by themselves. Denzo looked slightly taken aback by the answer, but only glanced at Hyuga Shu before closing his eyes again in silence. The Sand Ninja indeed chose to retreat at the critical final moment of this reinforcement operation. Yakame Hamako quickly nodded in agreement. Captain Shu's analysis is extremely insightful. If not for these weaknesses, the Sand Ninja wouldn't constantly choose withdrawal whenever facing major strategic decisions. That makes sense. Sakamo Hatake slowly nodded in agreement, though he offered no further comments. Then, gesturing for Hyuga Shu to sit down, he turned his attention to questioning the other Jonin commanders. It was hard to say whether it was due to Hyuga Shu's impressive performance or their fear of Denzo, but after a series of intense questioning rounds, although the Hidden Leaf Village Jonin gave varying impressions and answers regarding Hidden Sand Village, they ultimately aligned with what Hyuga Shu had said. Once all the Jonin had finished speaking, Sakamo Hatake nodded repeatedly but still refrained from commenting directly. Instead, he turned toward Denzo and asked, Senior Denzo, what are your thoughts? No amount of talking can replace deciding when our ninja forces will march. Denzo spoke calmly, debating endlessly here. Will that scare away the Sand Village eyeing us with aggressive intent? Will all your fancy speeches make the Sand Village's ninja force withdraw from the Land of Rivers? I'm not singling out Sakamo Jonin, he continued. I'm saying every single one of you Jonin present is trash. His sweeping verbal assault left every Hidden Leaf Village Jonin red-faced with rage, their killing intent surging. Yet Denzo stayed indifferent, sitting calmly on the high platform. After all, as long as Sakamo Hatake was around, even if these Jonin grew extremely angry, none would dare harm him in the slightest. Moreover, most of them were recently appointed Jonin commanders of newly formed ninja force units. Each of them had critical weaknesses under the village's control. There was no chance whatsoever they could cause real trouble. Another effect of his verbal attack was identifying potential candidates for the control faction based on the Jonin's reactions. Although Denzo, who always prided himself on adhering to the martial faction's stance, looked down upon the control faction. Including old friends like Saratobe Hiruzen. And considered these overly soft ninja unworthy of representing Leaf Ninja spirit, that didn't stop him from manipulating them purposefully toward his own goals. What he employed now was the simplest yet most effective psychological tactic. The provocation method. I don't understand why all of you shrink back at the mere mention of war, as though Hidden Leaf Village Ninja couldn't defeat the enemy on the battlefield. Denzo said coldly. His murderous gaze swept across the tent. Everyone except Shu lowered their heads wherever his eyes passed. 20 years ago, I marched into battle under Lord Tobirama's command from the Forest of Death, entering the First Great Ninja War. The 4 great hidden villages dared to invade us, yet all fell before the might of Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Force. Wherever we went, the 4 great hidden villages fled in terror. Truly, we held all the advantages of timing, a time of vibrant energy and flourishing growth. An era that still feels vivid today. Now, just 20 short years later, can it be true that even mere desert savages have reduced Hidden Leaf Village Ninja to trembling cowards? Even someone as proud and valiant as Sakamo Hatake couldn't help but feel deep respect. Personal feelings about Denzo aside, there was no denying the contributions and sacrifices made by this generation of senior ninja. Yet right then, Hyuga Shu, who alone kept his head high, stood out once more. Shu Jonin. Irritatingly enough, Denzo pointed his criticism squarely at him. And how do you, may I ask, view this matter? Times have changed. The glory of the past was forged by the Senju clan. As for the future, It is our blades and our battles that shall shape it. Hyuga rose to his feet, scanning the group of jonin before him. He spoke loudly, as Denzo Senpai said, whether we debate philosophy or reminisce about the past, none of it benefits the current situation. Then what does Hatake's Shu suggest? Sakamo Hatake asked flatly. A surge of bloodlust sweeps across the ninja world. Without power, all is doomed. Hyuga Shu quoted a line of poetry, then continued, only martial might can overpower every foe in our path. Hidden Sand Village's supply lines are strained, reinforcements have not arrived, and their elite forces have marched out with no results. It is exactly the moment when morale is at its lowest. We should seize this opportunity, launch a full-scale invasion into the Land of Wind, and annihilate their eastern stationed ninja force. This would secure a decisive advantage for Hidden Leaf Village. Excellent. Before Denzo could respond, Sakamo Hatake immediately declared, what do you jonin think? Crush them. Toshimeki Yamanaka was the first to jump up, raising his arm high, his expression wild with fervor. The entire jonin assembly rose as one, their voices rumbling like thunder. All divisions shall assemble immediately. All able-bodied ninja, except those on duty, must mobilize. Sakamo Hatake seized the momentum, barking out orders in quick succession, have an early dinner tonight, march under cover of darkness, and seize Hidden Sand Village's border garrison head-on. Chapter 73, 1,000 miles of raid. The ninja force was well organized. After the jonin military meeting ended, under Sakamo Hatake's command, each commanding jonin returned to their sector base to recall and gather their directly commanded units. Once all personnel and basic supplies were confirmed in order, they reported back to the central command tent. Once every squad and independent unit stood ready, Sakamo immediately dispatched all reconnaissance ninja under his command. Groups of ninja hawks and ninja dogs fanned out from the camp under their handlers' commands, sweeping the area to block any possible leaks of intelligence. By this time, although the lower-ranking Chunin and Geinin still didn't fully understand what was happening, they had become slightly tense under the prevailing atmosphere. Hyuga Shu also completed mobilization after returning to his squad base, but rather than boast about attending the meeting, he simply ordered his ninja to prepare for immediate deployment. Kazak Marubushi, an old hand seasoned by years of experience, could already sense something big was coming just by observing the tension at headquarters and across the camp. Still, he refrained from speculating aloud, silently pulling out a nearby ninja blade to polish it carefully. His actions alone were enough to tell the Chunin officers that something important was brewing. Yet none dared voice their thoughts openly in front of Hyuga Shu, communicating only through subtle glances and expressions. Other squad bases shared similar scenes. Another 10 minutes passed before a group of reconnaissance ninja returned to the camp, soon followed by the sounding of horns from the central command center. Everyone. Hyuga Shu slowly rose to his feet and addressed his subordinates, who wore expressions mixing nervousness and excitement. Exactly as you suspect, under Captain Sakamo's overall command, our entire force will participate in a cross-border strike operation. Our target, the Land of Wind. Victory to all. As the horn echoed across the camp, the entire ninja military base instantly sprang into motion. Unit after unit marched out under their commanding jonin, following designated routes toward the Land of Wind. In addition, some reconnaissance ninja had already departed earlier. They would act as the vanguard, responsible for eliminating enemy agents still lying in wait, ensuring the main forces advanced unimpeded. Though according to current public information, Hidden Leaf Village's deployed ninja forces numbered only 2,000. Half the size of Hidden Sand Village's 3,000 stationed along the Land of Wind's border. Each one of them remained full of spirit. Because as each unit left the base, every Hidden Leaf Village ninja caught a glimpse of Sakamo Hatake, fully armored, standing at the gate. March with the White Fang. Veterans originally stationed at the Western Front especially shared countless tales of Sakamo Hatake's heroic deeds with newly arrived reinforcements. As a result, confidence within the ranks grew even stronger. The army's morale is high. Although Sakamo himself had personally decided to dispatch the entire force, he didn't truly relax until now, seeing firsthand the strong fighting spirit displayed throughout the ninja ranks. If it had been in the past, Sakamo Hatake would have earnestly stopped others from praising him excessively, explaining that his achievements were the result of the collective efforts of all Hidden Leaf Village shinobi. But now, during wartime, he thought that if praise like this could boost the ninja force's morale, there was no need to correct it. With Lord Sakamo among us, there's nothing we can't overcome. Shirakawa Namiko offered praise at just the right moment. Then I'll trouble you again to take command as usual. Sakamo Hatake gave a slight, modest smile and said to Shirakawa Namiko, just like before, you'll handle the command center while I take the vanguard. This was also one reason why the two had always made an inseparable team. Compared with being bogged down by paperwork, Sakamo Hatake preferred the sensation of personally charging into battle with blade drawn. Understood, Lord Sakamo. Shirakawa and Amiko beamed happily. Groups of Hidden Lee Village ninjas spread out across a front nearly 10 kilometers wide, deploying over 2,000 shinobi at once. Although this inevitably thinned the front line, for shinobi, this wide array formation was more suitable than a serpentine one, particularly allowing combat specialists and ninjutsu users to showcase their individual fighting capabilities. In addition, elite reconnaissance squads took the lead, scouting ahead and eliminating Hidden Sand Village spies. Sakamo Hatake himself went directly to the forefront of the right wing. Once he crossed the land of rivers, he would personally lead the right-wing forces straight into Hidden Sand Village's camp. Shirakawa and Amiko would remain in the center to direct operations, while the left wing, commanded by Yakame Hamako, would handle the flanking maneuver. Hyuga was assigned under this unit. Nervous? While galloping forward, because they needed to match the generally slower pace of Chunin and Geinin within the ninja force, Hyuga and Miharu Uchiha weren't moving particularly fast, leaving them time to chat casually with Might Dewey, who wore an anxious yet extremely excited expression. "I'm in." Might Dewey started to respond, then hesitated before answering honestly from the bottom of his heart, "Actually, yeah. I am a little nervous." "That's exactly how it should be." Hyuga smiled reassuringly and explained, "Nervousness actually enhances one's potential. Especially on a battlefield that changes every second, it's important to stay alert for any sudden threats. Just facing Hidden Sand Village? That's nothing big to worry about." Kazuki Murabashi added comfortingly. Because Miharu Uchiha mostly stuck close to Hyuga, and with heavy wartime duties, since arriving at the western camp, Kazuki Murabashi had spent a great deal of time accompanying Might Dewey. The honest and straightforward Might Dewey deeply won Kazuki Murabashi's affection. "Toshimaki Jonin." After nodding slightly, Hyuga summoned Toshimaki Yamanaka and instructed him, "Your primary duty will be maintaining communication with participating field shinobi through secret jutsu and coordinating wartime support." "Got it." Toshimaki Yamanaka responded crisply. "Also, your directly commanded squad will function the same way. As your mobile unit, they'll be deployed onto battlefield as needed. And remember, unless absolutely necessary, you must not engage in combat personally." Hyuga gave one final order before raising his hand and summoning Midatuke. "Your directly commanded unit along with 5 other Chunin squads must wait until I charge into the prearranged enemy formation before launching your ambush attack. The only requirement is that your assault creates as much commotion as possible. Want me to create a few shadow clones for bigger impact?" Midatuke thought for a moment and came up with an idea. "That works fine." Hyuga had no objection at all. To him, the only job of his ninja force was to wave flags, make noise, and stir chaos among the enemy ranks. It would be perfect if he could personally collect all the bounties on those Hidden Sand Village heads. Thinking about it, Hyuga once again opened his system interface through consciousness, entered the marketplace, and found the long-coveted equipment, Triforce. Just 8 more coins away. Licking his lips, Hyuga activated his Byakugan and scanned the area. He was looking for an unsuspecting escapee. Someone who couldn't see through his disguise. Someone he could kill to earn those last few coins for his gear. Chapter 74, The Night of Chaos at the Camp. Useless. Not one of you is worth a damn. Inside the command tent. The central hub for the 3,000 border ninjas. At Hidden Sand Village's military camp near the Land of Wind border, continuous shouts and curses echoed relentlessly. The loudest voice belonged to Cho, an elder among Hidden Sand Village's founding generation and a trusted advisor to the Kazekage. Others like Sahiga and Tegan, former commanders of the border forces who had willingly stepped down upon Cho's arrival, merely offered occasional retorts. Their voices lacked both volume and eloquence compared to hers. This argument had already raged for a full day and night. At first, the Hidden Sand Village ninja stationed at the main camp were anxious, tense, and divided, but now they simply ignored it all. After such emotional turbulence, they could only admire Honorable Lady Namiko's lung capacity and patience. Because this long and tedious closed-door meeting kept most of the high-ranking Jonin busy, ever since Sahiga's unit withdrew from the Land of Rivers, returning ninjas hadn't received proper arrangements. Except for a few wounded treated by medical ninjas, most returned directly to their original squads prior to deployment. Precisely due to this disorganization, details of the lightning-fast strike against the Land of Rivers and the surprise attack on Hidden Leaf Village's advancing unit quickly spread like wildfire through Hidden Sand Village's ranks. Although decisions made by Hidden Sand Village's commander Sahiga had been carefully weighed for the village's overall benefit rather than out of cowardice, many ninjas stationed in Hidden Sand Village considered them weak cowards, who actually let victory slip right through their fingers, failing to wipe out Hidden Leaf Village's advancing unit entirely. A disgrace to Hidden Sand Village. Thus, while Hidden Sand Village's border command center continued its fierce internal debate, factions within the camp also erupted into arguments. Though all agreed that unity was essential, Tempers flared higher with each passing moment, gradually degenerating into bitter exchanges over old wounds. Hardline Hidden Sand Village ninjas transferred from Land of Rain battlefields under Chio accused the border troops of cowardice. In return, border veterans criticized their arrogance, claiming it would drag Hidden Sand Village toward destruction. They even reminded everyone how those so-called hardliners had been decisively defeated by Sanzuo Hanzo's Rain ninjas during previous battles in the Land of Rain. One side stood firmly upon Hidden Sand Village's traditional moral ground, while the other argued pragmatically based on reality. Each tried persuading the other without success, ultimately widening the rift between them. As tensions escalated, though actual violence didn't break out immediately, hostility within the camp reached its peak. Within the main tent, exhausted after relentless verbal assaults from advisor Chio, Hyuga swallowed his final military rations pill. Battling verbally with Elder Chio felt more exhausting than any real battle. He couldn't win with words, which was bad enough. But what made it worse was that Elder Chio looked as energetic as ever. Meanwhile, Hyuga had already taken his last military rations pill to regain his strength, and his voice was growing hoarse from talking non-stop. If this debate dragged on for another day or two, he'd really end up losing his voice completely. As a commanding officer, you show such cowardice. Elder Chio continued smirking coldly without letting up, her voice ringing loud like chimes in a bell tower. Hyuga, you must know shame. You're wrong. If you still believe it was right to release the remaining Hidden Leaf Village forces at the final moment, then you yourself are nothing but a disgrace to Hidden Sand Village. Commit seppuku. It's your only way to maintain dignity. And if you refuse to give yourself dignity, don't blame the village for giving you an undignified end. And you too, Tegan. As chief of staff for the ninja force, allowing the commander to make such a ridiculous decision means your guilt is also great. Hyuga's temper, which had just begun to settle slightly, flared up again. You want me dead, is that it? What, you figured it out? Then just die already. Elder Chio shrieked, if you can't do it yourself, let Tegan assist you with the honor killing. And I won't mind getting my hands dirty by doing the same for Tegan afterward. You're interfering with the independence of the ninja force purely out of personal vendetta. Tegan had previously stayed silent, merely nodding along, but after Elder Chio's remarks, he could no longer sit still and immediately stood up in protest. Elder Chio. Only Kazekage-sama has the authority to appoint or dismiss a jonin like me. Don't act like you're above everyone else just because of your age. So what if you lost your son and his wife? It's not like people haven't died in the border unit too. Hyuga added fuel to the fire. Now that everything had come out into the open, Hyuga didn't mind offending Elder Chio even further. Besides, control over the ninja force was his lifeblood. How could he possibly allow some newly assigned advisory elder steal it away? Moreover, Hyuga had always thought launching a sudden strike on Hidden Leaf Village's advancing unit was a terrible idea from the start. After Hidden Leaf Village's surprise attack destroyed the supplies stored at headquarters, the border unit had effectively lost its offensive capability. Though they might survive for a while on the few rations left, there was absolutely no way they could meet the necessary conditions for launching a large-scale campaign. In fact, the entire plan to conduct a sudden assault on a land of rivers was nothing more than an emotional outburst with no follow-up tactical planning whatsoever, achieving nothing besides needlessly depleting his directly commanded units. Indeed, forcefully deploying elite troops to ambush Hidden Leaf Village's forward force did achieve certain results, but those fallen and wounded soldiers were all part of Hyuga's own loyal forces. Over 700 men, all his prized assets. The battlefield successes of our main base are beyond your imagination, Elder Chio. Tegan snorted coldly before continuing, to be honest though, Elder Chio, your sand expeditionary forces couldn't even defeat mere rain ninjas, instead helping half-hero Hanzo earn his half-god reputation. A beaten commander has no right to talk about bravery. Hyuga concluded firmly, then rose to leave, ready to bring this verbal battle to an end. Well, there was no point in arguing anymore. No matter how influential Elder Chio was, she wouldn't dare attack a high-ranking jonin within the military camp. Hyuga knew this well and felt no fear at all. You! Elder Chio slammed her fist on the table, leaping to her feet in fury. Done playing by the rules, she was going to teach Hyuga what happens to those who talk back to their seniors. Boom. 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 But just as the three inside the tent were about to clash, a series of explosions suddenly erupted from outside. That's the sound of explosive tags. Tegan immediately realized what was happening, then listened again carefully. That's definitely Hidden Leaf Village's type of explosion. Form up. Prepare for defense. Hyuga jonin swiftly vanished using body flicker, shouting as he tried to regain control of the situation. Counterattack. Launch an immediate counterattack. Elder Chio also rushed out of the tent, but her orders were completely opposite to the commander's. Shah had just sprinted out of the tent with a grim expression, when suddenly from the corner of his eye, He caught sight of a white figure rampaging through Hidden Sand Village's chaotic forces. Wherever it went, blood and flesh flew, heads rolled, unstoppable. White Fang. Shou, who had suffered badly before, cried out in panic. It's Hidden Leaf Village's White Fang. Now things had gotten bad. The Hidden Sand Village ninja had already been confused by two conflicting orders from their top leaders. Now they were hit with sheer terror. Their morale, already shaken by the attack, plummeted into despair. Kill. Just when chaos engulfed the western side of Hidden Sand Village's camp, another series of explosions erupted from the northern side. Another figure burst into the camp from the north. Wielding a weapon that resembled a massive warhammer, he tore through the panicked ranks of Hidden Sand Village ninja, facing no real resistance. The sudden assault stunned all of Hidden Sand Village, and the fierce offensive shattered what little defense had managed to organize. Lost. Lost. Die with them. Die with them. Within less than a minute of enemy forces breaking into the camp, some Hidden Sand Village ninja whose morale had completely collapsed began shouting wildly, preparing to blow themselves up along with the enemy. Although the resilient Hidden Sand Village ninjas didn't collapse entirely, these chaotic suicide attacks only ended up killing more of their own people. Feels damn good. Amidst the carnage, Hyuga smashed an opposing Hidden Sand Village chunin to death with one powerful hammer strike, then threw his head back and let out a thunderous roar toward the sky. Chapter 75, The Ninja World is just a shoddy setup. It was indeed impossible to completely conceal the movement of more than 2,000 Hidden Leaf Village ninja on a long-distance raid that even crossed the entire expanse of the Land of Rivers. This was unavoidable no matter how many reconnaissance ninja they sent out. After all, it only took a flock of messenger hawks for the ninja to report back urgent intelligence. As long as even one of them reached headquarters safely, word of an enemy attack could be transmitted. That's exactly how Hidden Sand Village had launched its surprise attack against Hidden Leaf Village's forward unit in the Land of Rivers. They not only deployed covert infiltration squads ahead of time to circle behind the advancing force and ambush the Hidden Leaf Village ninja responsible for sending intel. They even brought out their prized summoned vultures in an attempt to temporarily block information flow. However, overseas ninja forces followed a strict rule. Status updates must be regularly sent back to headquarters. Any delay meant something had gone wrong or an attack was underway. It was precisely this protocol that allowed Shirakawa Namiko to detect Hidden Sand Village's assault in time. But Hidden Sand Village now faced another problem. The growing intensity of internal conflicts among its leadership. After recalling the ninja dispatched to strike Hidden Leaf Village's front line, many couldn't fully reintegrate into their original squads. And due to factional disputes caused by top-level disagreements, a chain of unexpected events naturally unfolded. From both theoretical and procedural perspectives, such situations where enemies reach your doorstep before you realize should never occur. But what could they do? Who said the ninja world was supposed to make sense anyway? It had always been spiraling into chaos. Damn it. Hyuga nearly crushed his teeth from sheer fury. Over 3,000 Hidden Sand Village ninja caught off guard by Hidden Leaf Village's sudden assault fell into complete disarray, instantly leaving Hyuga with a sinking feeling in his heart. In the face of such a surprise attack, the Sand Ninja's usual fearless combat style proved utterly useless. Tegan. You're in charge of assembling the Jonin squad. As commander, Hyuga couldn't afford to give up yet. He quickly assigned the task of reorganizing the troops to his chief of staff Tegan while he himself rushed toward Hyuga alongside several trusted Jonin. As for Sakamo Hatake. The even more fearsome opponent. Hyuga chose to ignore him entirely. Past experience had clearly shown he simply couldn't defeat White Fang. Yet when enemies meet, hatred flares instantly. At the exact moment Hyuga made his decision, Elder Chio had already summoned 10 puppets at once, sending them charging under her control straight toward Hyuga. According to the intel, the son and daughter-in-law she personally raised for behind enemy lines assassination missions had died by the hands of this relatively unknown Hyuga ninja. You be a Kugan punk. Die. Letting out a piercing scream, Elder Chio appeared nearly frenzied. Without hesitation, she activated her most cherished puppets. The Chikamatsu collection. And launched a thunderous counterattack against Hyuga. White secret technique, Mikio suction collapse. 3 white-clad puppets floated skyward, forming a triangular formation as they simultaneously triggered their Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha mechanisms, unleashing a powerful whirlwind aimed directly at Hyuga. As for the Sand Ninja currently locked in battle with Hyuga, Elder Chio didn't spare them a single glance. Let them die too. It would serve perfectly as a funeral offering for her son and daughter-in-law. Chioko Elder. It's us. As the suction force of Triforce Suction intensified, everyone within the casting area. Including Hyuga was affected regardless of allegiance. The weaker Hidden Sand Village ninja were especially vulnerable. They were being violently pulled off their feet by the intense force, desperately gripping the ground to resist the suction. But with the suction growing even stronger, even while lying face down on the ground, they were slowly but surely being dragged backward at a steady pace. Their hands left deep bloody marks on the rocky sandy ground as they tried to hold position. Hyuga's shoe remained relatively steadfast, at least managing to stabilize himself. He casually crushed the skulls of several hidden sand village ninja who had fallen into panic. If not for the wartime restrictions preventing access to shop purchases, Shu would have already synthesized the Triforce. But that hardly mattered anyway. Though the increasing suction did start making Shu's footing unstable too, he could still use his clan's unique ability to emit chakra from every part of his body. This allowed him to keep killing opponents with impunity under Elder Chio's Eastern Assault. And it was actually easier than regular combat. What exactly are you doing? The Kaiseiga Jonin who had just arrived was both shocked and furious. Seeing the situation, he disregarded differences in status and immediately took out a kunai, hurling it toward Elder Chio. Naturally, he didn't genuinely intend to kill this respected and formidable senior. The kunai was simply meant as a warning. A way to snap Elder Chio out of her frenzied state. You disrespectful junior, how dare you? Elder Chio burned with anger initially, but quickly regained composure. Glancing at the camp now in utter chaos, observing Shu's ruthless slaughter, and watching Sakamo Hatake cutting through hidden sand village ninja in the blink of an eye, Elder Chio immediately calmed down. This one's yours. I'll deal with Sakamo Hatake. Making an immediate decision, Elder Chio retracted her 10 puppets. The ox-headed puppet especially protected her as it carried Elder Chio flying toward the battle zone where Sakamo Hatake was wreaking havoc. This decisive abandonment came from her clear understanding that she couldn't remain calm facing her enemy's Shu. So rather than staying, it was better to directly engage against Sakamo Hatake. Kaiseiga Jonin instantly felt relieved. Meanwhile, Shu, who had also escaped, Triforce Suction grip. Immediately became energetic again. Jumping slash. After first using his Q ability to crush the skull of a hidden sand village Takebutsu Jonin, Shu followed up with a sweeping attack that sent 3 hidden sand village ninja. Just rising from the ground. Tumbling backward. Don't get ahead of yourself. Desperate and enraged, Kaiseiga Jonin immediately sprang forward intending to take down the rampaging Shu. Your opponent is me. But just as he body flickered forward, a female voice shouted behind him. Fire style, Great Dragon Fire Technique. The Chakra Fire Dragon formed by Miharu Uchiha's Fire Style, Great Dragon Fire Technique soared over Shu, rushing directly to confront the aggressively charging enemy. A B-rank jutsu. Saiga was instantly taken aback. He immediately halted his charge and started forming hand seals with both hands. Earth-style Mud Wall. Saiga knew full well that this ninjutsu couldn't block the Uchiha's Fire Style, a high B-rank technique. So right after the earthen wall rose from the ground, Saiga stamped his foot and got ready to evade the fire's reach. Boom. 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 As expected, the wall crumbled upon contact, and the explosion's force even affected the hidden sand village and hidden leaf village ninja locked in battle nearby. Fortunately, Saiga's earth technique had come just in time, at least serving to somewhat reduce its impact, so the surrounding ninja weren't severely affected. Shit. Just as Saiga regained his balance and was about to counterattack, he spotted a figure charging toward him at top speed, swinging a heavy torch pole. Chapter 76, a complete mess. Taking advantage of Kaiseiga Jonin's evasive maneuver against Miharu Uchiha, Hyuga's Shu quickly eliminated several nearby hidden sand village ninja and rushed toward him. Wind style, vacuum multisphere. From Saiga Jonin's mouth, countless invisible chakra wind blades surged forth, determined to slice the charging Hyuga's Shu into meat scraps. Jumping slash, Hyuga's Shu had no intention of testing his ability to withstand the technique from a veteran Jonin's B-rank wind ninjutsu. He immediately used jumping slash to leap onto the head of another hidden sand village Chunin, caving in the ninja's skull with one strike while rescuing Might Dewey, who was locked in a desperate battle. Without stopping for Might Dewey's thanks, he circled around again and charged toward Saiga. But just this brief delay allowed Saiga Jonin to recover from his predicament and reorganize his combat strategy. After this short confrontation, Saiga Jonin realized that Hyuga's Shu's reaction speed far exceeded his expectations. Combined with the deadly efficiency of his heavy weapon, which easily cracked skulls like eggs, Saiga made an immediate decision to win using ninjutsu. Wind-style Great Breakthrough. He first tried to stop Hyuga's Shu's charge with a simple wind ninjutsu, while simultaneously forming hand seals rapidly, preparing something big. However, Miharu Uchiha had no intention of letting him take his time preparing his technique. Fire-style, Phoenix Sage's Wrath, Flames of Rebirth. Controlled by Miharu Uchiha, countless head-sized fireballs, mixed with shuriken, hurtled from all directions towards Saiga, attempting to completely seal off every possible escape route. For Saiga, this jutsu became a real problem. Although as a Jonin he wouldn't fear such a basic fire ninjutsu, if he wanted to evade, he could only use body flicker to leave his current position. Otherwise, he would have to endure it physically. However, whether evading or enduring, he'd be unable to continue preparing his jutsu. Yet Hyuga approached at incredible speed, seemingly about to charge right through the fireball bombardment straight toward him. So Sahiga could only reluctantly make his choice. Body flicker. Just as Hyuga's menacing face loomed into view, Sahiga Jonin immediately retreated backward using body flicker, leaving behind Hyuga's who was about to be struck by Miharu Uchiha's fire-style jutsu. True ninja combat is a game of minds. At that moment, he felt full of himself. Even these Hidden Leaf Village ninjas weren't anything special. In the end, hadn't he outwitted even the so-called genius Sahiga? TCH. With a sharp cry, Miharu Uchiha raised both hands upward while snapping her fingers rapidly. What? Just preparing to capitalize on the situation, Sahiga Jonin suddenly noticed those fireballs heading directly for Hyuga's abruptly halted midair. Then, in an eerie manner, they forcibly changed trajectory once again towards Sahiga not far away. What is this? Only now did Sahiga realize that each fireball carried an almost invisible thin rope tethered to it. Cursed. This could only be attributed to his own carelessness. But even more critical was Hyuga's unstoppable approach. And now, he was bearing down on Sahiga with no way to escape. Earth-style, mud wall. With no other options left, Sahiga had no choice but to erect a temporary earthen barrier using an earth-style technique, hoping to block the attack briefly while he body flickered toward the densely packed crowd behind. But against Hyuga's Byakugan, the mud wall couldn't block his vision at all. Flash, like a ghostly specter, Hyuga's appeared behind Sahiga Jonin. He spun around and swung the torch pole in a heavy strike. Ugh! Sahiga instantly dispersed into a cloud of yellow sand. Clearly a clone jutsu. It's just a clone technique. Hyuga's was somewhat surprised. This was actually the first time someone had escaped his Byakugan vision using nothing but the basic three techniques like clone jutsu and substitution jutsu. But soon, his Byakugan pinpointed Sahiga's real body hidden among the crowd. Fire style, great fireball jutsu. At the same moment, Miharu Uchiha also spotted Sahiga's position and launched a massive fireball at him. Boom, the gathered Hidden Sand Village ninja scattered immediately. Counterstorm, jumping slash, with a wind barrier swirling around him, Hyuga predicted Sahiga's dodge midair, leapt high, and came crashing down with a ruthless overhead strike. Crash, another strange, hollow sound followed. A clear sign that Sahiga had once again used substitution jutsu and vanished in a burst of wooden splinters. A substitution again. Now even Hyuga couldn't help but give this Hidden Sand Village leader a newfound respect. Truthfully speaking, out of all the ninja he had ever fought, this was definitely the most extraordinary master of applying the basic three techniques in actual combat. There's no weak technique. Only weak users. Hyuga now fully understood that principle. But on the flip side, enemies with such profound mastery over fundamental techniques must be eliminated without mercy. Fueled by intense fighting spirit, Hyuga casually crushed the heads of several Hidden Sand Village genin before locking onto Sahiga's location once more, charging forward relentlessly again. This guy is insane. How can he be fiercer than those bone-wielding Kaguya freaks from Mist? Meanwhile, Sahiga silently cursed under his breath. The strange secret techniques displayed by Hyuga made him extremely cautious. He didn't dare think about engaging in close combat at all. Yet escaping wouldn't be easy either, since Hyuga's Byakugan could always pinpoint him precisely within the chaotic crowd. And to make matters worse, there was that equally annoying little Uchiha girl continuously disrupting his rhythm. I need to find a way. Sahiga rapidly formed hand seals while channeling some chakra underground. Elsewhere, Tsukumo Hatake had been pinned down in a stalemate by Elder Chio, who deployed the Chikamitsu collection puppets to block his wild attacks from all directions. Meanwhile, led by San's chief of staff Tegan, the mobilization efforts had achieved initial success. Around 300 Hidden Sand Village ninja had now gathered, clashing head-on with the invading Hidden Leaf Village forces inside the camp. Although these Hidden Leaf Village intruders were clearly exhausted after their long journey, under the effects of secret medicinal pills they still unleashed tremendous fighting zeal. Despite Hidden Sand Village's desperate attempts to gather defensive forces, they remained overwhelmed under relentless enemy assaults, barely capable of defending themselves. Moreover, even if Tsukumo Hatake got tied up in battle, Hidden Leaf Village still had elite jonin like Shirakawa Namiko and Yakame Hamako who were cutting a bloody swath through the enemy ranks. Beyond that, there was another figure of equal prominence who had just begun to take action. Summoning technique, MOBA. With a loud shout, a puff of smoke appeared, and Enzo's summon beast, MOBA, made a dazzling entrance. A deep, guttural roar erupted. The moment MOBA appeared, it immediately released a silent shockwave. Then, under Denzo's control, it unleashed a powerful suction on the 300 hidden sand village ninja that Tegan Jonin had barely managed to rally. Watch out! In the midst of the intense battle, a group of sand ninja immediately found themselves losing balance as they were lifted off the ground by Moba's suction power, flying straight toward its gaping mouth. Wind style, vacuum multisphere. Denzo precisely launched his wind style ninjutsu at that exact moment, slicing midair all those wildly flailing sand ninja into perfectly even chunks of meat. When it came to mastery of wind style techniques, Denzo was second to none among any of the sand ninja. With this single blow, the sand's painstakingly assembled ninja force instantly fell into chaos. With Shirakawa Namiko and Yakame Hamako holding the line, the roaring Hidden Lee village ninja surged into the sand formation, unleashing wave after wave of blood-soaked carnage. Chapter 77, Under the Warhammer, all are equal 2,000 against 3,000. The advantage is ours. Both the attacking Hidden Lee village ninja and the defending Hidden Sand village ninja believed exactly this. From the perspective of the Hidden Lee village ninja executing the surprise attack, under the command of their capable Jonin leaders, they had marched forward like entering a land devoid of people, crossing the entire land of rivers and rushing straight into Hidden Sand Village's military camp. This was a daring and innovative maneuver, unlike anything attempted before. Therefore, even though the Hidden Sand Village ninja within the camp held a certain numerical advantage, and their counterattacks were indeed fierce and brutal, under the leadership of veteran Jonin from the border forces, the mixed unit of experienced and newer Hidden Lee village ninja managed to execute a series of tactical maneuvers. Including division and encirclement. With relatively disciplined precision, cutting down the resisting sand ninja one by one. On Hidden Sand Village's side, their commanding Jonin continuously rallied morale during the battle, emphasizing their numerical superiority and repeatedly declaring that reinforcement troops led by the village's advisor Elderebazo were about to arrive. The desert warriors needed only to hold on for a short while longer, and once reinforcements came, everything would naturally improve. As for Chief Strategist Tegan, the reason he managed to assemble part of the ninja forces amidst the chaos for a counter-defensive strike was because these soldiers either genuinely or pretended to believe in those sincere yet deceitful words coming from the top leadership. However, when Denzo disrupted the carefully gathered formation of 300 Hidden Sand Village Jonin with his enormous summoned beast Moba, the final blow came with the arrival of Hidden Lee Village's elite ninja. Led by two powerful Jonin. Who plunged directly into Hidden Sand Village's ranks. At this point, the already fragile fighting spirit of the Sand Ninja collapsed entirely. Even if their commanding officers desperately tried to maintain combat readiness through persuasion or intimidation. Going as far as personally executing Hidden Sand Village military law on disobedient soldiers. None of it worked. In fact, these demoralized Sand Ninja would rather turn their blades on their own comrades trying to stop them from running than face the Hidden Lee Village Ninja head-on in a life-or-death clash. After repeated blows, combined with the illusion created by shadow clones making Hidden Lee Village's forces appear overwhelmingly massive, once the originally fierce Sand Ninja lost their self-confidence completely, their courage level dropped to something close to that of a helpless rabbit. So many heads to collect. Hyuga's shoe, locked in fierce combat with Hyuga Jonin. The Hidden Sand Village commander. Also noticed the total collapse of the enemy formation through his Byakugan, and instantly became extremely excited. His favorite thing was chasing down retreating enemies. Especially hunting down these demoralized fleeing ninja. Knock one down, easier than picking up loose change. However, before joining the pursuit, the first priority remained eliminating this annoying commander. Particularly since he was a Jonin, worth a huge bounty of 300 coins upon kill. 14.2 times more than a Chunin and 21.4 times more than a Gain-in. Such rich rewards, naturally, Hyuga's Shu had no intention of letting escape. But after battling for some time, Shu still couldn't fully lock onto the exact location of this Hidden Sand Village commander. Just when it seemed the battle was about to end, Hyuga Jonin managed to survive once again by employing creative uses of the basic 3 techniques. Although his mastery of the basic 3 techniques was nothing short of miraculous, under the combined analysis of Hyuga's Shu's Byakugan and Miharu Uchiha's Sharingan, Hyuga's ninjutsu techniques and movement patterns were gradually being deciphered by the two young shinobi. They were ready to put those findings into action immediately. Jumping slash. Just as Hyuga dodged Miharu Uchiha's fire-style attack again, Hyuga's Shu instantly pinpointed a probable spot through pure instinct and activated his technique to teleport there. Sure enough. The moment Hyuga arrived at his intended position using shifting body technique, he felt chills and killing intent creeping up from behind his head again. Damn it. This time, however, since Shu had already predicted Hyuga's actions, even Hyuga's extraordinary skill with the basic 3 techniques and Earth-style secret techniques couldn't buy him enough time to prepare. He could only brace himself for impact. Clang. The torch pole swept downward through the air, knocking away the kunai that Hyuga quickly crossed to defend himself. And the blow didn't stop there, directly striking his right shoulder. He lost his weapon. But twisted just enough to barely dodge that skull-crushing blow. With this powerful strike, the helpless Hyuga's right shoulder was broken in one fell swoop. But it wasn't over yet. Hyuga's Shu had never been the kind to show mercy to an enemy. Shifting body technique, Hyuga attempted to use the same trick again, but this time he had decided to abandon further engagement with these two Hidden Leaf Village ninja. To ordinary Jonin, bloodline Dujutsu clans were truly like living overpowered anomalies. Ganjutsu, this is not that place technique. Just as Hyuga thought he'd barely escaped Shu's grasp, everything suddenly turned red before his eyes. The swirling black tadpoles within Mahiru Uchiha's eyes implanted themselves into his mind. Something's wrong. Hyuga realized something was terribly wrong. It was fundamental knowledge all Hidden Sand Village ninja had to remember. Locking eyes with any Uchiha clan member who had awakened the Sharingan was incredibly dangerous. Even if that Uchiha was just a young kunoichi. The Ganjutsu, this is not that place technique worked by covering and overlaying the target's current vision and thoughts with illusory images via overflowing chakra, causing them to believe what they were seeing was actually something else. In simple terms, this illusion blinded the senses and caused misjudgments. And its most immediate effect was that the dazed Hyuga misjudged the direction from which Shu's torch pole was swinging. Crack. With a crisp sound, although Hyuga successfully broke free from the Ganjutsu at the last moment, he could only slightly twist his body sideways. Using his already injured right arm as weak cushioning, stomping down with his right foot while leaning forward. And flew outward propelled by the force of the strike. Crescent, Hyuga's Shu swung his torch pole at Hyuga's right arm, shattering his humerus just as he was about to land the blow. At the same time, he activated the innate skill of his equipment, Tiamat. A ripple of red energy spread outward. Hyuga felt as if struck by a heavenly wrath, blood spilling from his mouth, his plan to escape instantly crushed into oblivion. Finished. Facing this sudden turn, Hyuga gave up the fight and closed his eyes. Resigned to his fate. Bang. Without a second thought, Hyuga's Shu swung his hammer. And Hyuga's head exploded into a shower of blood and brains. Perfect? He barely savored his 300 coin reward for 3 seconds before already hunting for the next high-value target. If any ordinary Chunin, village junior ninja, or Gainian, beginner ninja, crossed his path, he'd smash them with one hit. Otherwise, he wouldn't bother. Hidden Sand Village advisor Elder Chio. After scanning his surroundings, Hyuga's Shu locked onto this famous figure who was currently locked in intense battle with Tsukumo Hatake. Now that I think about it, a family should always stick together. Since both son and daughter-in-law have fallen in battle, I might as well send this old coot off to join them. Reunited in death. Now that's heartwarming. Chapter 78, Traversing 10,000 Mountains Through Enemy Camps. The puppets wielded by Elder Chio were treasures passed down from Munsmen of the Hidden Sand Village puppet technique lineage. The legendary Chikamatsu collection. As one of Hidden Sand Village's founding elders, Elder Chio truly could control one puppet per finger, just like the saying goes. These 10 puppets worked in perfect coordination, launching combined attacks and performing synchronized ninjutsu. In previous ninja wars, she had used this incredible skill to literally take on 1,000 opponents at once. Single-handedly wiping out an entire small ninja village numbering over 1,000. But Tsukumo Hatake was different. Whether it was his famed swordsmanship, unpredictable body flicker technique, or his unbreakable lightning-style body strengthening, the White Fang's reputation had been forged through countless high-stakes missions and bloody battles. Moreover, the White Fang had gained true renown during this very great ninja war. By defeating Hidden Sand Village ninja. So when they faced each other, there were no words. Only an all-out fight remained. Yet while individual valor mattered, one must also consider the broader tide of war. Especially now, amidst this chaos, even the smallest advantage could snowball into an unstoppable avalanche. And Hyuga Jonin, the former commander of Hidden Sand Village's border forces who had fallen to Hyuga's Shu, was precisely that final straw. Commander Hyuga. Tegan Jonin, the exhausted chief of staff who had desperately tried to turn the tides, fell silent in shock. Noticing his reaction, the already panicked Hidden Sand Village ninja followed his gaze. Just in time to witness Hyuga's Shu's decisive strike, and the commander's remains reduced to ashes by Mahiru Uchiha's fire-style technique. This sight snapped the last thread of hope in the Hidden Sand Village ninjas' hearts. Like a mountain crumbling, the sand ninja who had only begun to retreat and still fought bitterly were suddenly washed away like sandcastles caught in crashing waves from Hidden Leaf Village, collapsing utterly and beyond recovery. Furthermore, with Shirakawa Namiko and Yakame Hamako leading their elite units to expand the encirclement and intensify the assault, and Denzo riding a massive summoned beast to wreak havoc across the battlefield, the remaining 2,000 Hidden Sand Village ninja scattered like frightened rabbits within moments. However, while lower-ranking ninja might flee, Elder Chio, as a village leader, could not. It wasn't just about pride. More importantly, although Tsukumo Hatake was retreating step by step under the coordinated assaults of the Chikamatsu collection, he remained composed throughout. His occasional counterattacks dazzled with deadly brilliance. If one faltered for even a moment, death would follow instantly. Thus, when Hyuga approached with Miharu Uchiha and his personal squad ready to finish her off, Elder Chio found herself cornered without escape. Even if she had wanted to make a strategic withdrawal, Hyuga wasted no time. He quickly ordered the two Takebutsu Jonin under his command to lead their respective squads in a flanking maneuver, while 5 Chunin-level teams acted as security forces, dispersing the panicked hidden sand village deserters fleeing in disarray. His direct squad? Mike Dewey was still too young and inexperienced to help, so he was sent off to deal with the retreating troops. The other 3 joined Elder Chio in surrounding Tsukumo Hatake completely. "So, it's you, brat?" At that moment, Elder Chio also halted her puppet assault against Tsukumo Hatake. After recalling the 10 puppets back to her side, she glared at Hyuga with a pair of old eyes filled with murderous intent. "It was you who killed my descendants." "It was me." Hyuga gave a slight nod and replied calmly, "Just like how I killed that high-ranking officer from your village earlier. Both of them died from headshots. Don't worry, they both passed away peacefully without any pain. After all, that's just what I, as a Hidden Leaf village ninja, should do." He slowly raised the torch pole in his hand and pointed it straight at Elder Chio ahead. "How about saying thank you?" Crack. Elder Chio instantly felt as though the strings controlling her sanity had snapped entirely. After all, who could possibly endure such provocation? Puppet technique, Triforce suction. Still starting with the familiar trio of puppets. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. The 3 puppets floated into the air simultaneously, opening their respective hidden mechanisms and unleashing a fierce suction force toward Hyuga. Water style, Water Dragon Jutsu. Kazuki Marubushi, old and wise, quickly completed the unique hand seals using his specialized method, then inflated his cheeks and spat out a massive water dragon aimed directly at Elder Chio. With enhanced suction power, the water dragon surged forward even faster, instantly sweeping through the triangular formation created by the 3 puppets. Elder Chio never expected that her once invincible technique would actually be countered in this way, but she was experienced enough to immediately flick her fingers, prompting the puppets to activate a secret jutsu. Puppet technique, Machine Light Shield Seal. Using the puppets as mediums, Elder Chio transformed her chakra into a shield and forcefully blocked the water dragon's barrage attack. However, besides Hyuga and the other 2, there was an even more dangerous Tsukumo Hatake watching hungrily from the sidelines. And enemies stuck in defensive positions with limited mobility were exactly the kind of targets Tsukumo Hatake liked best to eliminate. White Fang Sword Style, Lightning Slash. A streak of white lightning shot up from behind Elder Chio, catching her off guard with ear-splitting speed. Sealing Jutsu, Roaring Lion Maw Seal. Elder Chio quickly yanked out a scroll, unfurling it just as Tsukumo Hatake came charging from behind, releasing a lion's head-shaped chakra projection. Tsukumo Hatake immediately stabilized midair, then vanished again into a shadowy blur. This was also the most feared aspect of Hidden Leaf Village's legendary White Fang. Not only was his piercing ability unmatched, but his movements were so unpredictable that no one could follow his trail. But even during this brief distraction, Miharu Uchiha's Fire Style Ninjutsu followed closely. Fire Style, Great Dragon Fire Technique. The thick and refined fire dragon easily shattered Elder Chio's chakra shield. At the same time, Yamanaka Toshimaki, the Takebutsu Jonin under Hyuga's command, activated his family's inherited secret jutsu. Mind-body switch technique, Power Strike, Jump Slash. Hyuga launched his attack as well. With the skills boost, he surged forward to a position above Elder Chio and smashed one puppet to pieces. Then he activated Tiamat's ability. Crescent. Although the red ripple of destruction didn't inflict serious damage on the battle-hardened and incredibly resilient Elder Chio, it did cause her body. Already struggling to break free from the Yamanaka clan's secret jutsu. To shudder violently. Yet even so, in the absence of control, the other 9 puppets still launched an elaborate and relentless assault against Hyuga. Counterstorm. With a furious shout, she raised a wind barrier to block all incoming attacks from the puppets, then immediately followed up with Ignite, Arg. Even with unbreakable mental fortitude, Elder Chio could no longer endure the ignite effect while still under the influence of the Yamanaka secret jutsu. Blackish red flames engulfed her entire body, signaling that she could no longer endure the torment. Even Toshimaki Yamanaka, who was maintaining the secret jutsu, felt the soul-searing heat, forcing him to end the technique immediately to avoid unnecessary additional harm to himself. Yet even with the mind control technique released, Elder Chio had already lost the strength to counterattack. No mortal could summon chakra under such sudden and dire conditions to mount another attack. This was simply the weakness inherent in flesh and blood. Bang! Amplified by the skill's power, she struck the finishing blow with one hammer strike straight to the head. Killing the woman revered as Hidden Sand Village's ninja flower, whose very presence, even when withered, could still guide the sands forward. Just like that? Witnessing this scene, Tsukumo Hatake couldn't help but feel stunned. But Shu had no time to care about anything else. His gaze had already been drawn toward the defeated Hidden Sand Village ninja retreating in disarray. Pursue. Unrelenting pursuit. Waving an arm forward, Shu led his battle-thirsty subordinates in charging after the disoriented sand forces who scattered like headless flies. In this world, nothing felt more satisfying and easygoing than taking enemy heads. Chapter 79, Ironclad still bears the clouds of war, a trail of blood. It was also a path of survival with little hope. Moreover, it was a long and deadly road guarded by the Shinigami. From the eastern border of Hidden Sand Village's military encampment stretched a path of death paved with the corpses and blood of countless slain Hidden Sand Village ninja. This escape route, bearing the name Hope, but in reality leading only to death, was controlled entirely by Hyuga's Shu. After Shu successively eliminated Commander Hyuga and Advisor Elder Chio, the Hidden Sand Village ninja force completely collapsed, losing all capacity for resistance. Even Chief of Staff Tegan Jonin was torn apart by Denzo's wind blade, reduced to a bloody ruin. As for the so-called reinforcements led by Honorable Lady Namiko Ebizo, they hadn't even cast a shadow, while the scattered, fleeing Hidden Sand Village troops could only serve as targets, methodically surrounded and wiped out under the purposeful pursuit of Hidden Leaf Village ninja. In blind panic, most surviving Hidden Sand Village ninja fled in the same direction. Toward the vast desert deep within the Land of Wind, east of the main camp. And this very desert road became the best hunting ground for Hyuga's Shu to reap heads like wheat. In fact, to intercept the retreating enemy more quickly, Shu even used up his precious flash, just barely managing to cut off part of the enemy's escape route. Yet even so, advancing deep behind enemy lines had caused Shu to fall out of formation with his squad. In the end, he had slain only about 70 Hidden Sand Village fugitives. Once the Hidden Leaf Village forces within Hidden Sand Village's main camp finished separating and eliminating the remaining enemies inside and around the camp, nearly 1,000 Hidden Sand Village survivors had already vanished into the vast desert. Faced with that, Shu, who had abandoned his subordinates to chase alone, could only sigh helplessly at the edge of the desert. He wasn't foolish enough to personally pursue them into the desert. For ninja from Hidden Leaf Village who hailed from fertile plains, the desert was an entirely different terrain. Chasing recklessly into its depths risked becoming lost, and once lost, one would likely perish from dehydration and exposure. Therefore, even Shu, who cared only for enemy heads, had merely stationed himself along the unavoidable escape routes to ambush, without daring to venture too deeply. But that had been more than enough. When Mahiru Uchiha finally reached him, after carving her way through fleeing Hidden Sand Village soldiers blocking her path, Shu was already sitting atop a pile of corpses, quietly smoking a cigarette post-battle. Shu-kun. Mahiru rushed straight into his arms at body flicker speed, not minding the blood staining his body. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Did you get injured anywhere? Excited yet flustered, she frantically ran her hands over him, fearing any delay or movement might worsen potential injuries. I'm fine. It's not mine. This is all Hidden Sand Village blood. Shu immediately stood up, performing several exaggerated movements to prove he was perfectly unharmed. The reason his body was soaked in blood, making him appear like a walking corpse, was simply because his fighting style involved using the torch pole to smash enemies' skulls, inevitably splattering him with thick traces of gore. That's good then. Mahiru instantly burst into tears turned smiles. Your eyes. What caught Hyuga's Shu's attention were Mahiru Uchiha's startlingly different eyes. What's wrong? Still dazed, Mahiru Uchiha rubbed beneath her eyelids, but soon sensed something strange with her eyes. She quickly pulled out a small mirror from her ninja tool pouch and looked into it. It's the double tomoe. They shouted the answer in perfect unison. Then, as if guided by mutual instinct, the two immediately threw themselves into each other's arms and began devouring one another's mouths like oxygen-starved lovers. So when the Hidden Leaf Village ninjas who had been chasing the Hidden Sand Village retreating forces finally arrived at the interception point where Hyuga's Shu stood, what greeted their eyes was nothing but scattered bones and corpses across the ground. And two powerful clan heirs locked passionately in a kiss amidst a sea of blood. Disgusting behavior. After witnessing this scene, Denzo spat in disgust and stormed back to the Hidden Sand Village camp. Although the amount of remaining military supplies after Sand's defeat was minimal, the bodies, leftover medicine, and especially Elder Chio's puppets. The Chikamatsu collection. Were treasures too precious to waste. He had only brought 6 Root Division agents with him, so if he wanted to claim as many spoils as possible, he himself, as top advisor, would have to get involved directly. Only then could he wrest these rewards from the greedy mouths of the border forces. Also spotting Denzo's movements while leading his own forces forward, Yakame Hamako quickly deduced the old man's intentions. Deciding not to push deeper into the desert for further pursuit, he instead left part of his men behind to clean up the battlefield alongside Hyuga's direct squad. Meanwhile, he led the first squad back to the camp using body flicker. After all, for a broadcast force like theirs, whether it was selling those hidden sand village corpses in underground markets or scavenging whatever leftover supplies they could find, these spoils simply couldn't be handed over freely. Especially not to someone as shameless as Denzo. Ha! As the two lovers finally broke apart from their passionate kiss amid the piles of corpses and pools of blood, Miharu exhaled dizzily. Just like always, Miharu had lost this round of their breath-holding challenge. Though the scenery around them was filled with terrifying severed limbs and entrails, in Miharu's eyes, this crimson display of romance far surpassed the fragrance of roses. Kasuke-senpai, don't you think our teacher is being somewhat? Trying hard to suppress his nausea while cleaning the battlefield, Might Dewey stole glances at his completely oblivious teacher, unusually curious and talkative about matters unrelated to combat. Careful now, interjected Kosuke Marabushi casually, gather up those intestines and brains, and avoid getting any feces from the bowels onto yourself. That was the first thing that came to mind? Talk about clueless. Ugh. Looking at the brain matter in his hands, Might Dewey suddenly felt his stomach churning violently. Blurg. My everything belongs to you. Licking her lips, Miharu gazed deeply into Shu's Byakugan, its white streaked red with bloodshot veins. You are my entire life. Shu responded with equal conviction and intensity. I know. This time too, I won't mention the double tomoe to anyone else. Feeling suddenly shy for no clear reason, Miharu Uchiha took a deep breath and shifted the conversation. At the same time, she took out a handkerchief from her ninja tool pouch and began wiping the blood off Shu's face. The white handkerchief quickly turned dark red, revealing his flawless visage underneath. Her breathing quickened just a little. For some reason, it was always right after battle that her desires surged the strongest. But obviously, this wasn't the appropriate time for anything overly intimate. So, Shu pinched her cheek, signaling her to be patient. Then he gave orders to his subordinates clearing the battlefield. Stack up the hidden sand village corpses for incineration. Fire style, great fireball jutsu. With such a thoughtful Miharu-chan around, there was no need for Shu to give special instructions. Once subordinates had stripped the lower-ranking hidden sand village ninja corpses of all valuables and piled them into a heap, Miharu Uchiha directly burned them all into ashes with her fire-style ninjutsu. Like the endless sandstorms of the Land of Wind, these lifeless bodies still returned to dust and earth, as they always had. Chapter 80, Cold wind blows sand with sorrow. Carrying the icy chill of winter from the Land of Fire, the Hidden Leaf Village Border Force launched a long-range strike under the command of Tsukumo Hatake and decisively eliminated a long-standing thorn in their side. Tsukumo Hatake earned glorious merits sufficient to elevate him into higher halls of power. Shirakawa Namiko and Yakame Hamako successfully eliminated the major threat that had long plagued the Hidden Leaf Village Border Force. Even Denzo, who usually kept his distance, secretly collected several Jonin and Shunin corpses from Hidden Sand Village after the battle, planning to use them for future experiments. Also left behind was the Chikamatsu collection previously owned by the fallen Elder Chio. With permission granted by Hyuga and after discussion among the relevant parties, it was decided to divide the 9 well-preserved puppets into 4 portions. 3 would be returned to the village's research institute as study materials, while Denzo, Shirakawa Namiko, and Yakame Hamako each received 2 for personal collections. Of course, Hyuga wasn't completely selfless either. The main reason he gave up these spoils of war was because, in his eyes, those puppets were practically worthless. After all, even Miharu Uchiha, the top-ranked puppet master of Hidden Sand Village and wielder of the ultimate puppet technique Treasure, had been killed by him. Thus, the value of these piles of scrap metal meant little to him, so he gladly used them to exchange for other usable resources. Shirakawa Namiko and Yakame Hamako offered to jointly recommend Miharu for immediate promotion to Hidden Leaf Village Jonin rank as compensation. Denzo refused to do such a thing, so instead, he simply exchanged 30 pounds of chakra metal. Denzo's trade wouldn't be a loss either. After all, the amount of chakra metal extractable from just 2 puppets alone exceeded 30 pounds. Moreover, the puppets bore various secret cursed seal scripts considered priceless techniques exclusive to the Hidden Sand Village puppet lineage. However, since Hyuga wasn't a researcher himself, what mattered most to him was how quickly he could convert these resources into his own strength. That was always his top priority. Forget all the petty scheming and backstabbing. Hyuga's biggest gain came from the pile of coins he'd scraped together through battle after battle. Jackpot. When he returned to base, Hyuga pulled up his system interface and spotted the 4-digit coin count. He burst out laughing. 3,848 coins. From this single round of combat, Hyuga had defeated 5 Jonin-level enemies including Elder Chio, earning 1,500 coins. Additionally, he had slain 41 Hidden Sand Village Chunin and 33 Gainian, gaining another 1,325 coins. Moreover, high-ranking officials from Hidden Sand Village. The Chio Elder and Saigakai Jonin. Each provided an epic legendary reward, worth 500 coins. With all that, Hyuga finally struck it rich. No doubt about it. The very first thing he wanted to craft was the Triforce. He'd been just 8 coins short before, but now. As for the remaining 3,840 coins, after browsing the equipment shop, Hyuga used his existing Vampire Scepter and Tiamat, along with 1,300 coins to craft the Hunger Hydra. He chose this item not just because he already had the 2 components, but mainly because the 20 points of skill haste from the Hunger Hydra were far more valuable in battle than the Giant Hydra's health boost. As for the remaining 2,540 coins, after much deliberation, Shu decided to spend 1,300 on a Stormlord Sword, and 1,200 on an Iron Seal. Storm Sword, plus 40 attack damage, Iron Seal, plus 15 attack damage, plus 30 armor. The purpose of these 2 items was to synthesize the Guardian Angel, commonly known as Rebirth Armor. After all, Shu knew that having extra lives mattered most. He was quite certain there were no revival fountains in this world, so he couldn't afford to recklessly gamble with his life like he used to while playing games in his past life. Additionally, another major concern for Shu was whether the caged bird, Tenketsu, Curse Seal still posed any threat after being cleared multiple times by the summoner skill, Purify. But according to the principle of better safe than sorry, saving up for a Guardian Angel was definitely necessary. Earning coins was like carving dirt with a pin, spending them was like shoveling sand away with water. Left with only 40 coins. Insufficient even to buy a life potion. Hyuga could only sigh longingly at the dazzling array of equipment available in the shop. What are you thinking about? It's time to get to work. Freshly bathed and changed, Mahiru Uchiha pounced on Shu. Who was still sighing into the void. Like a caged tiger finally unleashed, instantly clearing his head of all calculating thoughts. What followed was the warmth of silk sheets and moments meant only for the 2 of them. Whenever the ninja force deployed into battle, especially when launching a cross-border attack against another major hidden village, it was always necessary to report back to the village immediately, regardless of success or failure. So the very first thing Tsukumo Hatake did after the battle was summarize the combat report and send it to the Hokage Tower in Hidden Lee Village via Ninja Hawk. In the report, Tsukumo meticulously listed the achievements of every participating ninja and recommended rewards accordingly. At the very top of the list was none other than Hyuga, who had directly instigated the conflict. However, to Hidden Lee Village's F3, the most glaring name among those honored in the battle report was Mahiru Uchiha, jointly recommended by 2 senior Jonin commanders. Could it be that White Fang has already allied with those lunatics? Koharu Utane's first instinct was that something ominous was happening. With the Uchiha clan's strength combined with Tsukumo Hatake's prestige among the commoner ninjas, their alliance would create an influence far greater than the sum of its parts. This could cause a massive shift in Hidden Lee Village's internal power dynamics. If pessimistically viewed, even the politically inherited traditions dating back to the second, Tobi Ramasenshu, might be overturned. If the commoner shinobi and noble clans were to unite, then people like them, who considered themselves the protectors of justice and fairness, wouldn't fare well at all. That probably won't happen. But after carefully reading the report, Third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi shook his head and reassured Koharu Utane, who was clearly anxious. There's absolutely no indication that Tsukumo would ally with the Uchiha clan. However, what we should really watch out for is this Hyuga representative. Hamura Midokado nodded in agreement, pointing at Hyuga's name listed first in the report. Perhaps it's his critical role that matters most. He's just a branch house member, Koharu scoffed dismissively. Besides, according to previous intelligence reports, this guy indulges in carnal pleasures, spending all day in his barracks without knowing what he's scheming with those seductive Uchiha women. What threat could such an undetermined character pose? While speaking, Koharu cast a meaningful glance toward Hiruzen, whose reddening face betrayed both embarrassment and well-known lecherous tendencies. Even so, Hamura interjected thoughtfully, although he may indulge in lustful pursuits, the Uchiha clan doesn't seem to reject his presence. Moreover, despite minimal training with his ninja force, his strength seems to be skyrocketing at an unnatural rate. Suddenly recalling something, Hamura turned to ask the third Hokage, by the way, are there really no secret dual cultivation jutsu for men and women in the ninja world? How should I know? Even with his usually gentle disposition, Third Hokage Hiruzen showed signs of being both embarrassed and angry. Setting that aside, the real concern is the influence this Hyuga branch house ninja has within the martial faction. Homura smoothly shifted topics while stroking his beard. The report also notes something important. The quick victory strategy was first proposed by Hyuga's Shu in Jonin combat meetings and then backed up by Tsukumo Hatake. Then under the pretext of rotational leave, let's recall him back, Koharu interjected. Except for his directly commanded squad, we should dissolve the rest of his unit and integrate them into other understaffed ninja units. Hiruzen considered this for a moment before nodding in agreement. As for that unauthorized cross-border attack, we can't punish Tsukumo or anyone else over it, or else village public opinion will blow up. Homura closed the report while stroking its cover. Therefore, we'd better accelerate our moves regarding the Land of Rain, even if it's just some propaganda, so we won't let Tsukumo Hatake take full credit as the sole war hero. I'll speak with Orochimaru about this, Third Hokage agreed. From these words, both Homura and Koharu understood the old monkey's preference. It's actually Orochimaru. Chapter 81, A Lone City Under the Setting Sun. The Hokage Tower moved with an unusually swift pace. 4 days after the surprise attack on Hidden Sand Village's border forces. 3 days after Tsukumo Hatake submitted his battle report to the village. An official decree from the Hokage Tower arrived at Hidden Leaf Village's western border forces stationed within the Land of Wind, escorted by an Anbu squad. Furthermore, this decree was incredibly detailed. Between the lines, it highly praised Tsukumo Hatake's decisive handling and wise leadership while commending the bravery of various Jonin. It expressed deep condolences for the fallen and injured ninjas. As for everyone's biggest concern, the unauthorized initiation of border conflict. It wasn't mentioned at all. In addition, fully following the commendation list provided by Tsukumo Hatake, promotions were granted without delay or ambiguity. Yet such generosity naturally came with ulterior motives. Beyond these seemingly reasonable and fair words, the Hokage's decree also emphasized work-life balance, arranging for some veteran ninjas who had long served in the western border forces to return to the village for rest or reassignment under the guise of compassionate rotation policies. Naturally, Hyuga was among those selected for this so-called compassionate rotation. He hadn't even settled into his role as company commander before being pulled back to the village for reassignment. Although the entire ninja force felt surprised by this sudden kindness from the Hokage Tower, it was essentially a dream come true for ordinary frontline ninjas, so Tsukumo Hatake couldn't very well object directly. Thus, once the decree had been read to the Jonin, Tsukumo Hatake pulled Hyuga aside afterward for a private discussion. Commander Shu-san, here are the village's reviewed opinions. The recommendation for Mihiru Uchiha Chunin's promotion by both command Jonin has already been approved. No sooner had he sat down than Tsukumo handed over the formal review document regarding the recommendation to Shu-san. Without waiting for Shu to respond, Tsukumo then produced another document as if pulling a scroll from nowhere and passed it over. This is Mihiru Uchiha Jonin's evaluation report. Please keep it carefully. This. Shu hesitated briefly but still reached out to accept and began reading the second document. What caught his attention was the slight difference in suffix applied toward Mihiru-san between the two documents. Frankly speaking, this document indeed contained quite a surprise. Or perhaps more accurately, a shock. Traditionally, ninja evaluation opinions had always rested solely with the Hokage's final decision. Meanwhile, the Jonin unit merely handled registration duties once promotions were approved by the Hokage. Therefore, there were two signature sections on the Jonin promotion evaluation form, one for the Hokage's review opinion, and the other for the Jonin unit leader's registration confirmation. Naturally, the Hokage's opinion held precedence. What astonished Shu lay precisely here: before the final review and approval from the Hokage Tower, Tsukumo had already issued Mihiru Uchiha's assessment grade under the authority of the Jonin unit itself, officially recognizing her as a full-fledged Hidden Leaf Village Jonin entitled to complete privileges belonging to the Jonin rank. This completely inverted the original Jonin promotion procedures. It was practically an unprecedented challenge by the Jonin unit toward the Hokage's authority. Although Hyuga Shu showed surprise on his face, Tsukumo Hatake remained as calm as ever. He even poured a cup of sake for Shu and himself. This is a fine brew from the Land of Wind among the captured supplies, Tsukumo introduced with a rare smile. You should give it a try, Shu-kun. It's different from our village's sake. It has a distinct sharpness to the flavor, very much like the style of sand. After Hyuga Shu quietly put away the Jonin exam form, Tsukumo Hatake immediately began explaining with a slight grin. Really now? Hyuga Shu also displayed a curious expression accordingly and downed the entire cup of sake in one go. Indeed, excellent sake. Then have some more. Tsukumo Hatake laughed heartily, clearly easing his previously tense mood. There are still 3 crates of this sake among the supplies we confiscated. I'll have them delivered to you later. Needless to say, Shu was more than happy with this. Then I'll gladly accept your generous offer, Leader Sakamo. Naturally, Shu smiled calmly and agreed. After all, if he had already accepted that Jonin exam form. A clear challenge to the Hokage's authority. What were a few more crates of sake? Did anyone really think Sakamo Hatake was putting the Jonin to the test through a drink? What Jonin couldn't pass that kind of test? As for Miharu Uchiha, who was pushed forward as the scapegoat, Hyuga Shu wasn't worried about her objecting. On the contrary, for someone like Miharu Uchiha, who belonged to the traditionalist conservative faction that particularly despised the radical soft stance. Challenging the Hokage's authority undoubtedly sounded exciting. Will Miharu Jonin be okay with this? Still, Sakamo Hatake couldn't help but ask cautiously. She's obedient enough. Hyuga Shu poured himself another cup of sake leisurely while saying, anything that would upset and annoy the village officials. I'm sure the Uchihas would find that quite appealing. The village still needs unity, Sakamo replied obviously without sincerity. Of course. For our unity. Hyuga Shu raised his cup in a toast. For the eternal and ever-reliable Hidden Leaf Village. No words were needed between them. They understood each other completely. When Hyuga Shu returned to the barracks, Miharu Uchiha was already checking through the supplies Sakamo Hatake had arranged to be sent over. Apart from the 3 crates of sake from the Land of Wind they'd discussed during their private meeting, there were also 15 pounds of chakra-infused metal. And something even more surprising, a whole pile of scrolls. What is this? Hyuga Shu casually picked up one scroll, opening it to discover notes or insights regarding wind-style techniques. Judging from the material and marks upon them, these should have been sand-exclusive items seized directly from the battlefield, as many bore spots of dried blood stains. These are spoils brought by the supplies management squad. Most contain wind-style techniques rarely seen in clan repositories. Miharu Uchiha answered, and what's most valuable is. They're all original documents. Is that so? Hyuga Shu raised his eyebrows slightly but said nothing further. Then, he took out the village's recommendation review form and the Jonin exam form that had already been pre-signed by Sakamo Hatake in his capacity as acting leader of the Jonin unit, handing both to Miharu Uchiha. Congratulations, dear Miharu Jonin. Oh. That's great. Miharu Uchiha casually tossed aside the scroll she had been flipping through and threw herself into Hyuga Shu's arms, her blazing red lips wandering wildly across his face, while her delicate hands boldly went straight for his crotch. Dear, it's still daylight outside. Though they'd explored each other countless times before, Hyuga Shu still found himself flustered under Miharu Uchiha's passionate advances. Beats sitting around doing nothing. Miharu Uchiha performed a single hand seal and completed Shizun ending, right before Hyuga Shu's wide-eyed shock. When did you learn? But before he could finish speaking, his mouth was sealed by those fiery red lips. Chapter 82, Whatever Happened to Heroes' Great Deeds? When Hyuga Shu finally walked out of the dormitory with an aching back, it was already noon the next day. After the latest village decree was announced during the Jonin military meeting, the Hidden Leaf Village border forces who were still stationed along the Land of Wind's border had already begun preparing for their withdrawal. In the past few days, Hidden Sand Village had remained quiet. The only event worth mentioning was when a local noble from the Land of Wind, trembling nervously, arrived at the captured Hidden Sand Village camp with a group of samurai who looked just as frightened as quails, to discuss supply matters with Sakamo Hatake. Sakamo and the other Hidden Leaf Village Jonin didn't give this surprisingly courageous noble any trouble. Instead, they politely reassured him that Hidden Leaf Village would take no liberties and paid market price for the supplies delivered. After all, the money was originally taken from Hidden Sand Village camp, and there wasn't much use bringing it back home anyway. So why not just do a favor and call it even? But for this local noble from the Land of Wind who had come personally to Hidden Leaf Village's encampment expecting nothing less than risking his life or losing his skin, Sakamo Hatake and the Jonin in welcoming him were practically saints. Completely unlike those grim-faced sand ninja who always looked like they had a stick up their backsides. No matter what Lord Daimyo or those sand brutes say in the future, the border patrol duties will be entrusted entirely to you, honorable and kind-hearted Hidden Leaf Village ninja. When Hyuga Shu reached the center of the camp plaza, he happened to witness the departing local noble enthusiastically making promises to Sakamo Hatake and others who had came to see him off. Though Sakamo himself didn't really believe such a small-time noble could actually fulfill these promises, he still maintained a polite smile on his face as he thanked the man for his assurances. Hyuga Shu didn't dwell on it either and simply proceeded directly to the area where his squad was stationed. Teacher Mike Dewey, who had been squat jumping while hugging his knees, immediately noticed Hyuga Shu's arrival. He sprang up and hurried over with brisk, eager steps. Hearing Mike Dewey shout out, the rest of the ninjas in the squad base quickly exited their tents and swiftly formed ranks before Hyuga Shu. Although Hyuga Shu wasn't exactly a qualified commander, his fighting style favored solo combat, and he often charged ahead, leaving his subordinates behind. He remained deeply admired by his men. Since arriving at the western camp, he had spent most of his time staying close to Miharu Uchiha, neglecting both training and supervision of his squad. Very soon, I'll be transferred back to the village due to orders from the village leadership. This unit will then be handed over to another officer appointed by the border forces. Hyuga stood in silence for a moment before deciding to lay everything there up front. A wave of slight unrest rippled through the assembled ninja, but their discipline as shinobi kept them from questioning or protesting immediately. This is the village's decision. I have no choice either. Hyuga swept his gaze across the group, memorizing everyone's expressions at this moment. Disperse now. Everything follows Central Command tense arrangements. At once. Although somewhat reluctant, these ninja immediately responded in unison. Teacher, what about us? After everyone had gone, Might Dewey piped up eagerly, we're your direct subordinates after all. Let's go back to the village together. Hyuga smiled slightly. You'll need to adapt to my training methods, though. No problem. Passionate effort is exactly what youth is all about. Under your guidance, I'll definitely become a great ninja. Buoyed by excitement, Might Dewey leapt high into the air, then continued with his noon physical training at Hyuga's gesture. Junji-senpai. Hyuga shifted his gaze toward Junji, who stood not far ahead. Pity, our squad will probably disband after returning to the village, so. That is indeed too bad. Though Kazakh Maraboshi felt some regret, he simply nodded without further comment. As one of Hidden Leaf Village's first-generation ninja, he had witnessed countless partings and deaths. Though feeling some sentimentality about dissolving this small unit, their time together hadn't been particularly long. Moreover, Hyuga wasn't particularly enthusiastic about building emotional connections with his subordinates, so his feelings weren't especially deep. But I really am curious about Jonin's abilities. Would it be possible for me to witness them again? This question was on Kazakh Maraboshi's mind first and foremost. He didn't harbor ill intentions. He also recalled how, when the squad was first formed, the Hokage had personally summoned him and asked him to guide Hyuga using the will of fire. Now obviously such influence seemed impossible, but through recent observations, Kazakh Maraboshi did gain general understanding of Shu's abilities. However, he couldn't quite determine the gap between their strengths, so he wanted to test it firsthand. Sure, right here. Shu agreed immediately. Here? Kazakh hesitated momentarily, since most of his ninjutsu were large-scale offensive techniques. Practicing them within this confined plaza might cause some damage. It doesn't matter. Please proceed without concern. Hyuga smiled slightly, then assumed the opening stance of gentle fist. Jonin, are you not going to use your usual weapons? Kazakh casually asked while already forming hand seals. A ninja of the Hyuga clan isn't necessarily dependent on weapons for battle. Shu answered calmly. Besides, he already had enough advanced gear, heavy weapons weren't needed for a regular sparring match. Moreover, bringing out the torch pole would result in serious injuries either way. Such excessive force truly wasn't warranted. Then I shall ask for Jonin's instruction. Completing his seals, Kazakh Maraboshi took a deep breath. Water style, water dragon jutsu, a highly condensed chakra water dragon erupted from Kazakh Maraboshi's mouth, lunging straight at the nearby Hyuga. Counterstorm, Hyuga let out a low shout and immediately activated his technique, charging headlong into the water-style jutsu. 8 trigrams gentle fist, 32 palms, under Midatuke's wide-eyed gaze. Nearly popping out of their sockets. Shu forcefully used his gentle fist techniques to smash the mighty water dragon into countless droplets scattered across the sky like fireworks. What the hell was that? Kazakh Maraboshi and every ninja who witnessed this scene were left agape, their astonishment too great to express. Is he even human? Probably only someone from Hidden Cloud's village using the lightning-style body-strengthening technique could reach such a level. Inside the tent, Toshimeki Yamanaka was watching intently through the crack, his heart pounding with excitement, eyes burning intensely. I've made my decision. I'm going back to the village. Midatuke licked his lips, his eyes equally filled with fanaticism. Same here. Toshimeki Yamanaka nodded repeatedly. As for the command authority over the ninja force as a Takebutsu Jonin or any subsequent military rewards, he had long since dismissed those concerns from his mind. For ninja, especially those belonging to the martial faction, what could be more important than following a powerful martial ninja? Although Shu had never publicly announced himself as a member or supporter of the martial faction, his words and actions had led the Hidden Leaf Village ninja to automatically consider him part of it, so whether he acknowledged it or not didn't matter. If the martial faction believed he was one of them, then he was. We definitely shouldn't mix with these vermin in the village. Toshimeki Yamanaka whispered. Staying with them is why Hidden Leaf Village will never improve. In a fight where both sides are equal, it's taijutsu that decides who wins in the end. Having finished his display of prowess, Hyuga said casually after wrapping up the show. Kazak Marubushi stood speechless. Afterwards, Shu exchanged a few polite words before heading off to the Jonin mess hall to get lunch for Mahiru Uchiha, who had been bedridden from overexertion during battle. Within his Byakugan vision, he'd long since noticed the murmuring between Toshimeki Yamanaka and Minato. Mission accomplished. Shu deciphered their supposedly private conversation through lip reading, feeling quite pleased inside. Quality over quantity. Gaining 2 more Takubutsu Jonin level followers was always a bonus. Chapter 83, Desolate hills and naturally mottled grass. The wind passed without leaving a trace, except for birdsong lingering in the ears. Basking under the ever-present grace of the Hokage, Hyuga was listed among the first batch of ninja to return to the village and enjoy carrying rest leave. Therefore, as the Hidden Leaf Village ninja forces prepared to retreat to the Land of Rivers and Hidden Leaf Village border, Hyuga was directly appointed by Sakamo Hatake as the Vanguard Reconnaissance Jonin. He was responsible for leading his directly commanded squad to eliminate potential deserters along the main Hidden Leaf Village forces' retreat route, ensuring their safe withdrawal. Of course, this was merely an excuse Sakamo had casually come up with. His real intention was simply to allow Hyuga to return to the village sooner rather than delay his journey due to the slow-moving post-war logistics teams. Especially after those veteran ninja from the Western Border Forces, who had been specially granted rest leave, departed, the Western Front would fall into a leadership vacuum. Sakamo needed to send those ninja enjoying their break back to the village as soon as possible, so he could legitimately rotate his own followers in to reinforce. As Hyuga traveled homeward with his directly commanded squad, they trekked tirelessly. Wherever they went, nothing remained besides the desolation left by war. A gentle breeze swept across the plains of the Land of Rivers, lifting flurries of snow mixed with dirt into the air. Over the vast wilderness, only carrion-eating vultures cried out in the silent sky, their echoes reverberating endlessly. The Land of Rivers had barely managed to rebuild its population and settlements since the First Great Ninja War, but now all that progress was rendered meaningless by the whims of a few ninja. Let's rest for 10 minutes before continuing. Even through his Byakugan vision, Shu had not detected the slightest sign of human habitation along the way, clearly demonstrating how desolate this land had become. All right. Might Dewey's reply remained consistently loud and energetic as always, echoing across the barren landscape. But failing to disturb even a single bird or beast, because any careless birds or beasts had already been eliminated by the overly alert ninja. Guided by Shu, the group of 4 settled atop a cluster of rocks and took out instant meals to replenish their energy. At this moment, Mahiru Uchiha displayed unusual gentleness and docility, quietly sitting beside Shu and taking out dried meat from her pack to warm it with fire style. Meanwhile, Marubushi Kasuke skillfully pulled Might Dewey aside to another corner of the rock formation, trying to avoid unintentionally becoming an awkward third wheel. Hyuga understood this very well. He knew Mahiru's current behavior was only temporary satisfaction-induced laziness. Chances are, once they got back to the village, she'd revert to her true self in no time. Come to think of it, who could resist such a cold outside warm inside Kunoichi? However, upon returning home, he surely would face various pressures from the Shin clan. The Uchiha clan probably wouldn't mind much. Even though they're often seen as unstable, this red-eyed bunch has always respected power. But the Hyuga clan, known for its rigid traditions and formalities, might not be as forgiving. Thinking about this, Hyuga's mood instantly darkened. Shukan Mahiru Uchiha felt a shift in the air, so she got up and sat beside him, placing a strip of meat warmed with fire style into his mouth. Everything will be alright. Shu chewed the dried meat as he mumbled, no one can stop us. Just let them try and object. Leaning close to Shukan's ear, Mahiru whispered with the softest voice, saying the fiercest words, I'll chop off their heads and give them to my beloved Shukan as a gift. In that case, I'll look forward to it. But leaving them broken is still better left to me. Shu leaned in and gently kissed Mahiru's red lips, then whispered, you just need to take care of the final kills and burn the bodies. We'll make a necklace set from their skull caps. Mahiru threw her arms around Shu's neck, passionately responding with her fiery lips. Once Shu led his team back to the border defense base camp, only a handful of on-duty ninja remained. He quickly completed the handover procedures and obtained the documents authorizing his entire unit to return to the village for rest. What surprised him most was finding 2 ambush squads stationed in the camp. That was extremely out of the ordinary. In addition to the 2 ambush squads already stationed here, there was yet another ambush unit responsible for delivering orders and urging the withdrawal at the Land of Wind border region. In other words, 3rd Hokage Hiruzen Saratobe had dispatched nearly 1/7 of the directly commanded units visible on the surface. The reasons Shu could confirm these were Hokage's direct Anbu rather than Denzo's root division was because he recognized one of them. The dog-masked Anbu he'd fought before. Though they had never officially met or learned each other's names, Shu could identify from the chakra signature that this was indeed the same person he had encountered before. However, neither party exchanged any words this time. Shu no longer deemed them worth his attention, while the Anbu operative had his duties to attend to and couldn't engage in casual conversation. Thus, the two parties simply passed each other by and went their separate ways. Master Shu on their way back to Hidden Leaf Village, Might Dewey finally gave in to his curiosity and asked, "Those we met at the camp, were they truly the Hokage's Anbu?" "Yes." "What about it?" Shu slightly turned his head as he asked, "Are you really interested in joining the Anbu?" Yes. Might Dewey bobbed his head up and down like a cabbage in a storm. "In that case, just train hard enough. When your strength reaches a certain level, believe me, the Hokage will recognize your talents." Of course, Shu would never say anything like forget about joining Anbu with your personality. Instead, he chose to offer quite positive encouragement. After all, the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Since nobody else valued Might Dewey, this once precious but disposable gem, Shu would have no qualms about leading him down an entirely different path that hadn't been considered before. Though staying silent, Kazekurabashi also felt deep down that Might Dewey's dream of entering the Anbu was unrealistic. However, since they had spent considerable time together, he found it difficult to speak the honest truth. Adding to that, since Hyuga Shu was the team leader, it was perfectly reasonable for him to say things that could inspire his subordinates' morale. Therefore, Kazekurabashi didn't find anything wrong with what Hyuga Shu had said. As for Might Dewey's strength, frankly speaking, Kazekurabashi did acknowledge how hard he worked. However, in his opinion, if a ninja chose the wrong training path, no matter how hard they worked or how much sweat they spilled, ultimately it would all be for nothing. Pity you weren't born with a talent for ninjutsu. Kazekurabashi sighed slightly, feeling some regret over Might Dewey's innate abilities and destiny. "By the way, sensei, do you wish to join Anbu?" Excitedly, Might Dewey burst out with an irrelevant question. "I take pride in being a Hidden Leaf Village Jonin." Hyuga Shu pointed at the forehead protector worn neatly on his brow. "Oh." Although his teacher's reply seemed off-topic, surprisingly, the usually clueless Might Dewey appeared to somewhat grasp the meaning. Then, without further conversation, he hastily pulled out a military rations pill, swallowed it, and picked up his pace, because Hyuga Shu and Miharu Uchiha had already sped up ahead. This is the blazing passion of youth. Feeling the wind rush past him as he sped forward, Might Dewey couldn't help but cry out. What a nut! Miharu Uchiha was getting a headache. Chapter 84, The Setting Sun Casts a Lone Shadow. Deploy for battle? With what forces shall we deploy? In the Leaf's forward camp located in the Land of Rain, Orochimaru furiously tore the combat order sent from Hidden Leaf Village into pieces, his rare display of emotional breakdown visible as he shouted loudly before his two teammates Jiraiya and Tsunade, as well as the Anbu messenger who had came to deliver information. Has our teacher lost his mind? Doesn't he know the situation here at the front lines? To send us out during such terrible weather conditions is practically sending my men out to die. And also, I allowed my troops to return to the village for rest and recuperation with only good intentions. But after those exhausted warriors already tired of war after serving more than 2 years returned home, where is my subsequent reinforcement force? You. Yes, you I'm talking to. Tell me. Where are my ninja forces? Orochimaru glared with his snake-like slit pupils, fixating menacingly on the visibly flustered Anbu messenger. Orochimaru-sama. The messenger inwardly groaned but didn't know how to respond. Heavens above. He was just an Anbu directly under command, tasked solely with delivering sensitive official documents. How would he be privy to high-level military decisions? But still, could he even dare say no? Everyone in Hidden Leaf Village knew the Hokage's favored pupil, Orochimaru, had a legendary temper. Though his status as an elite direct Anbu under the Hokage was prestigious, this only applied relatively speaking. Moreover, this particular order he personally delivered came straight from the Hokage himself. Who specifically designated Orochimaru as its recipient. Naturally, the politically astute Anbu understood exactly what this meant. Similarly, the messenger realized intelligent Orochimaru must have already figured all this out, and thus, the current outrage and frustration he displayed could only mean one thing. The stationed ninja forces in the Land of Rain indeed faced some extremely severe practical difficulties. Therefore, he too felt trapped by the confrontation. Speak up. A loud roar from Orochimaru startled the messenger back from his wandering thoughts. Is the old man trying to get my men killed? Orochimaru-sama, Tsunade, Jiraiya-san, the messenger quickly tried to explain, please don't misunderstand. Lord Third truly has his reasons. Elaborate. Until now silent, Tsunade folded her arms coldly and asked, just what is sensei thinking? Who convinced him to launch an attack against the Rain Ninja Village at a time like this? This is December. The coldest period in the Land of Rain. The constant heavy rains are even colder than the frozen lands of the Land of Iron. Jiraiya added sarcastically, of course, we're not blaming you messengers whose job is just to relay orders. We simply want to know who came up with this foolish idea. Feel free to speak up. Our lips are sealed. We won't let anyone know you told us these things. Right. Unless something goes wrong, the next Hokage will definitely come from one of us three. Humphrey. Humphrey. That final pair of threatening snorts came from Orochimaru, causing the greatest chill yet in the messenger's spine. Under White Fang's command, the western border forces crossed the land of rivers and annihilated the majority of Hidden Sand Village's border army in a single day. But initially, the village hadn't expected White Fang to go this far and launch an offensive across the border. Unable to wipe the sweat from his masked face, the messenger Anbu simply endured the discomfort and muttered softly, "That's why we also need to achieve some quick results on our campaign front in the Land of Rain. We want to ask you. Who exactly came up with this idea? Don't you realize how difficult things are for our expeditionary forces in the Land of Rain right now?" Jiraiya impatiently snapped, "Don't try to change the subject. What we want to know is who convinced our teacher to make this foolish move." The messenger Anbu didn't continue answering. Instead, he shook his head repeatedly, signaling that he dared not speak further. Orochimaru's expression immediately darkened. Tsunade thought for a moment and quickly understood the underlying cause behind all this. It's that same old power struggle game again, huh? Just thinking about such matters made Tsunade's mood extremely sour. Humphrey. Unwilling to get involved in these annoying affairs any longer, Tsunade let out a cold snort and turned around, walking away directly. "Hey, where are you going?" Jiraiya bounced forward as if to follow her. "Shin came by yesterday, and I'm going to find him right now. Don't bother me." Tsunade replied extremely impatiently. Without stopping her pace, she walked straight out of the central war tent. As if hit by a thunderclap, Jiraiya froze on the spot, stunned for quite some time. He looked like a kicked puppy. The messenger Anbu's inner gossip hound began howling. "Shin?" After a while, Jiraiya stammered as he turned toward Orochimaru and asked, "When did he come back? Wasn't he supposed to be on an ultra-classified mission? And why didn't I know about this? You went drinking and soaking in hot springs yesterday. So it's perfectly normal you wouldn't know." Orochimaru gave Jiraiya an exhausted look. His patience already tested from having to urgently drag him out of his pink distractions. This. Jiraiya was instantly speechless with shock, almost wanting to slap himself. "Oh right. Does she know about me going out for pleasure?" Suddenly remembering something, Jiraiya hastily asked again. "Do you think there's anyone in the entire expeditionary camp who doesn't know about your hobbies?" Orochimaru responded rather impatiently. Then he turned his attention away from Jiraiya, who was being annoying, and focused instead on the messenger Anbu watching everything unfold. "Lord Orochimaru, please give your orders." Snapping out of his gossip-filled daze, the messenger Anbu immediately straightened up and declared with respect, "Your commands are our sacred mission." Orochimaru ignored both the eager-to-please messenger and a thoroughly dispirited Jiraiya, directly taking out a scroll and swiftly writing a secret message. Then he sealed it with a unique cursed seal before tossing it to the waiting Anbu ninja. "Take this scroll back to the village and give it to Sensei." Orochimaru spoke slowly. "If headquarters decides to launch an offensive, we'll need the number of ninja forces and supplies specified in this scroll. Otherwise, any offensive action is unlikely to bear results." "Huh?" Jiraiya was immediately taken aback. But then he figured, if Orochimaru had already brought it up with their sensei, they probably wouldn't be acting rashly. They must have worked everything out before even thinking about attacking the Rain Ninja village. Knowing how the village bureaucracy worked, going back and forth for 2 or 3 rounds of discussions would probably take until January of Hidden Leaf Village year 39 anyway. By then, the rain in the Land of Rain would start getting a bit lighter and not so icy. That might even work in Hidden Leaf Village's favor. It's tough for shinobi not used to constant dampness. At once, the messenger Anbu practically sighed with relief, hurriedly tucking the encoded scroll away, respectfully bowing to Orochimaru, and then vanishing with the body flicker technique like someone fleeing for his life. "Are we really going to start a war against the Rain Ninja village?" After the messenger Anbu left, Jiraiya, who had seemed so drained earlier, now perked up again. War's never been the best solution to anything. But it is the fastest. Orochimaru interrupted his lecture directly. "Besides, the village sent us. And so many other ninja. Here to fight non-stop for over 2 years. We can't just retreat empty-handed. Especially Sakamo himself destroyed one of San's border armies." Chapter 85, No trace where the wind passes carried by the cold wind from the western land of fire. Hyuga and his squad finally arrived at Hidden Leaf Village. The village he did not truly belong to. After traveling day and night for over a day. Though it was a snowy winter day, Hidden Leaf Village's entrance remained crowded. Countless merchant caravans from across the ninja world waited quietly in the heavy snowfall, undergoing registration checks before entering the village. The Uchiha ninja from the policing department were fully armed, scanning the crowd with their cold tomoe eyes, searching for any suspicious outsiders. Furthermore, atop Hidden Leaf Village's high walls stood several Hyuga clan members in open positions, carefully observing everything happening near and far, not missing even the slightest movement. Hyuga and Miharu Uchiha exchanged puzzled looks at this unusual sight. It wasn't just that security measures for entering and exiting the village had been significantly heightened, more importantly, the Uchiha and Hyuga clans who had always been at odds had their ninja appearing together. Although Hidden Leaf Village previously had mixed squads like the one led by Shu and Miharu from these two powerful families, it was the first time ever that members of both clans appeared simultaneously during official public duties. "What the hell is going on?" murmured Shu as he rubbed his eyes in disbelief. "This could change everything," replied Miharu, imagining how clan politics might finally allow them a future together. If the two clans really made such an unexpected peace, all the obstacles keeping them apart would just vanish. Even better, they could claim their marriage helped bring peace between the clans. They'd have the full blessing of the Uchiha and could officially start their own family. At that thought, Miharu almost blurted out the word she dreamed of saying for so long. Still, Miharu maintained her composure like any good ninja should. Her mind was already playing out dramatic scenes, but on the outside, her icy mask remained. Those Shu, who knew her best, could sense the storm beneath. He didn't say anything though, simply reaching out and taking Miharu's hand in his own. With many Uchiha officers from the policing department maintaining order, Shu's team quickly bypassed the lines and completed their re-entry registration, smoothly returning to the beloved Hidden Leaf Village they hadn't seen in a while. Though it was the height of winter, Hidden Leaf Village was bustling with activity and alive with voices. Despite past war-related economic downturns, ever since the recent victory led by Sakamo Hatake against Hidden Sand Village spread across the land of fire, excitement throughout the village and nation had surged dramatically. Previously restrained consumer demand, held back deliberately due to fears of prolonged war draining the economy, now burst forth powerfully. Upon hearing Hidden Leaf Village's formal announcement of their border war victory against Hidden Sand Village, nobles from various daimyo courts also strengthened their desires to hire what seemed to be unstoppable Hidden Leaf Village ninja for missions. Even if Hidden Leaf Village's payment requirements for equivalent missions were much higher than those of the other four great hidden villages. The sudden surge of consumer enthusiasm from the villagers of Hidden Leaf Village, along with nobles generously pouring in mission rewards, further stimulated the village's commercial prosperity. The strong consumer demand enticed more wealthy merchants to ship their wide variety of goods from all over the ninja world to satisfy the cravings of Hidden Leaf Village's big spenders. This was why Hyuga saw a large group of merchant caravans waiting to enter the village when he returned to the Hidden Leaf's gates. After completing the registration and returning to the village, Shu first took his team members to Yakiniku, an Akimeki-owned restaurant, for a hearty meal. Though little was said during the dinner, Shu saw it as a quiet farewell to Kasuke Marubushi within the team. After successive major battles, Shu had reaped rich rewards and no longer needed to maintain a low profile as he once did. With Miharu Uchiha's certain promotion to Jonin, the team's disbandment or reorganization became inevitable. Moreover, both the recommendation letter and the promotion application form that Miharu Uchiha received had been personally signed by Sakamo Hatake. An undisguised act of taking sides. The Hokage faction had no reason to allow Kasuke Marubushi, a powerful but intentionally low-profile ninja, to remain under Shu's command. If Shu failed to guide Marubushi and instead was influenced by him, the Hokage's side would suffer a major loss. Kasuke Marubushi naturally understood the meaning behind this gathering, but he didn't say much, only occasionally serving food to Might Dai, who was happily devouring his meal without sensing anything unusual. The four of them feasted for nearly an hour before finishing up. They took their time paying and stepping outside, and it was already well past 4 o'clock. Shu gave a few brief words of parting before allowing Kasuke Marubushi and Might Dai to go their separate ways. He then strolled leisurely toward the Hokage Tower with Miharu Uchiha. Although Sakamo Hatake had already arranged all the necessary procedures for Miharu's Jonin promotion through his Jonin unit subordinates, according to protocol, it was still required to obtain the Hokage's signature on the form as a formal conclusion to the entire process. As the team's Jonin leader, Shu also needed to report back to the Hokage Tower upon returning to the village and receive new mission assignments from the Hokage himself. Of course, there were certain privileges that came with being a Jonin. especially since he had been officially pulled back to the village under the pretext of a compassionate rest rotation. He even had the right to refuse any mission assignments issued by the Hokage if he found them unsatisfactory. As for Mahiru Uchiha, if there's something wrong with what the old monkey plans, she cautiously asked while they walked, what should I do? There's never been a case where two Jonin stayed on the same team before. What if we're separated? The whole point of rules like that is for people like us to break them, she replied calmly. Those rules were made to control the weak. What use are they for us, Jonin? And don't forget one key point. You're an Uchiha. Hyuga gently rubbed the bridge of the girl's nose, his expression filled with affection yet his words sharp with truth. Do you really think the village would entrust the future of the Will of Fire to an Uchiha Jonin? Not at the moment, she replied. Mahiru Uchiha blinked in surprise at first, but after recalling the current situation, particularly how Uchiha clan members who held Jonin ranks, especially those from the conservative faction, were being treated, she felt a quiet disappointment and shook her head. You see? She said mildly. Then again, that isn't a bad idea either. Mahiru hesitated briefly, then gave a firm nod. Actually, during the wartime in the Land of Rain, they had been paired up for extended missions as Chunin. Although this arrangement had originally been a temporary measure due to Hidden Leaf Village's shortage of forces stationed there, it had become a favorable option ever since they became lovers. While giving up their roles as team leaders meant losing the opportunity to train the next generation of Hidden Leaf Village ninjas, it also offered them a world where only the two of them existed, free from outside interference. It'll be okay. Everything will work out, she said with a slight smile, glancing up at the empty sky as if absent-mindedly. Chapter 86, Flexible Power Emerges Unstoppable. The Hyuga boy seems to have sensed something. Inside the Hokage's office within the Hokage Tower, the Hidden Leaf Village F3 were watching through a crystal ball as Hyuga and Mahiru Uchiha got cozy. Hyuga lifting his head toward the sky was displayed clearly in the image of the crystal ball created by the telescope jutsu, as if he already knew about his current situation. He must possess some exceptional talent in sensing chakra. Koharu Uchiha speculated, Hiruzen's telescope jutsu shouldn't be detectable by anyone in principle. No need for doubt. He's definitely noticed us. The third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi casually waved his hand, intentionally shutting down the image on the crystal ball. Being detected by just a regular Jonin. And worse, being met with a smirk directed right at the technique's viewing angle. Deeply irritated Hiruzen, widely regarded as the ninja professor. But irritation aside, what could he really do? Jonins must never be disrespected. That had always been Hidden Leaf Village's core belief. Though countless violations of this rule occurred behind closed doors, publicly they still needed to maintain respect for the status of Jonins as high-ranking members of the village. Especially now that the Jonin unit was no longer just a rubber stamp and vote counter like before. Doing anything shady would inevitably face new levels of oversight and restraint previously non-existent. You've probably heard already? Hamura Midokado pointed at the now completely transparent crystal ball. What White Fang orchestrated with a Jonin unit this time wasn't minor at all. We absolutely cannot let go of the authority over Jonin promotions. Koharu added in agreement. Regardless of their actual power and position, all Jonins of Hidden Leaf Village were portrayed in both internal and external propaganda as elite ninja who'd overcome endless trials to rise from among the most capable shinobi of the village. Hidden Leaf Village's greatest treasures. Such rhetoric served to motivate the next generation of civilian-born shinobi while using moral pressure to keep naturally proud and rebellious Jonin slightly more restrained, effectively reducing governance costs for the village. Yet in reality, the Jonin unit, serving as both the management body and decision-making platform for Jonin collective power, had long fallen under the control of the Nara clan before Sakamo Hatake took temporary command of the unit amid crisis. It had become nothing more than a tool for the Hokage Tower to control public perception and silence opposition. The unit's original function of collective deliberation and supervision had been abandoned for years. Now, with Sakamo Hatake rallying the Jonins under the banner of shared governance and basking in the immense prestige gained from his successful cross-border strike on Hidden Sand Village, the once comfortably seated Hidden Leaf Village F3 was beginning to feel uneasy. Of course, Sakamo Hatake's presence was overall far more beneficial than harmful to Hidden Leaf Village. But sometimes the interests of those in power didn't always align perfectly with the village's best interest. And that inconsistency was deeply unsettling. Even Koharu Uchiha, known for her hunger for power, couldn't deny the benefits Sakamo Hatake had brought to Hidden Leaf Village in terms of long-term stability. Yet she also clearly understood that with Sakamo's growing power, a confrontation with the deeply rooted Hokage lineage was inevitable. Knock knock knock. As the three inside the office were deep in thought, someone knocked on the door. That kid already here? Hamura Midokado expressed surprise. Neither of them. The third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi slightly shook his head. He identified the chakra signature outside and said, "Come in." Screech. A messenger Anbu pushed the door open and entered. "Lord Hokage, I have completed my communication mission in the Land of Rain and now report back." "What did Lord Orochimaru say?" Koharu impatiently asked. "When do you think we can achieve victory?" The messenger Anbu didn't respond directly to this advisor elder's question but looked toward the silent third Hokage. "What does Lord Orochimaru want?" After a moment of silence, Hiruzen Sarutobi finally asked slowly. He knew his most gifted student better than anyone else. Based on the messenger's expression right now, he could roughly guess the outcome of this communication mission. Lord Orochimaru requests the village provide support, otherwise the Rain Country Expeditionary Force cannot independently organize another offensive. The messenger ninja immediately took out the scroll Orochimaru had given him and quickly stepped forward to present it. "I understand." Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed slightly. This result could be described as unexpected yet reasonable. Although Lord Orochimaru's leadership style always gave the impression that he was willing to sacrifice everything for missions and victories, in reality these decisions that seemed cold and ruthless were all made after careful consideration combined with actual circumstances. They weren't simply about staining his path to advancement with blood. Therefore, if Orochimaru had some confidence, he probably wouldn't refuse operational orders and instead make demands of the village. After all, although the current situation of the village appeared prosperous and thriving like a raging fire, as the leader of the hidden village, Hiruzen Sarutobi fully understood the undercurrents stirring beneath this surface. For example, the inexplicable gradual easing of tensions recently between the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan. If the Uchiha clan and Hyuga clan truly achieved complete reconciliation and began sharing intelligence, then the divisions and sowing of discord the Hokage lineage had painstakingly created among various ninja clans since the second's time, Tobirama Senshu, might no longer remain hidden. Just managing the Uchiha clan already demanded the Hokage lineage's full focus. Throw in the Hyuga clan and its allied clans, and it would be a whole new level of challenge. At that point, perhaps the three pillars of Hidden Leaf Village would need to consider how to gracefully step down. "You may return to your base first." Spinning the scroll in his hands, Hiruzen Sarutobi had no mood to break the seal and read it. Instead, he waved his hand, indicating the messenger Anbu should withdraw. This matter was put on ice for now. "When will Denzo be back?" After a long silence in the office, Koharu Udatane spoke up coldly. "We absolutely cannot let things continue like this. Otherwise, the village's traditions might be compromised. Denzo should return today as well." Hiruzen Sarutobi checked the calendar and clock, figuring Denzo wouldn't be away much longer. "We should question him thoroughly afterward, since he personally experienced the Hidden Sand Village conflict." Hamura Midokado chimed in. "If Hidden Sand Village's combat strength has truly deteriorated, then rotating Sakamo, Orochimaru, and Denzo could also be an option. Let's discuss it later. We need to hear Denzo's opinion on this matter first." Hiruzen Sarutobi remained noncommittal. The two of them have already arrived downstairs. "Would you like to meet them together?" "No interest." "Excuse us." Understanding his meaning from his tone, Hamura Midokado and Koharu Udatane stood up simultaneously and left. As the two advisor elders reached the base of the Hokage Tower building, they happened to see Hyuga sticking close by and Miharu Uchiha holding flowers while completing their visitor registration. "Good day, honored elders." Although Hyuga's expression appeared indifferent, he gave a slight nod in greeting. Miharu Uchiha, however, didn't even lift her head, continuing focused on filling out the visitor form. "Good day." Hamura Midokado responded with a nod. Koharu Udatane simply walked past without glancing sideways. Those stubborn old fossils still got some spunk left. After finishing the registration forms, Miharu Uchiha remarked openly in front of the Anbu guards. "Isn't that just how people who refuse to die peacefully act?" Hyuga smiled as he replied. Chapter 87, Suspicion and Recruitment. Knock knock knock. As a Jonin assigned to report back after returning from the battlefield, Hyuga was the first to arrive at the Hokage office door. Following the arrangement of the Anbu guards, he lightly knocked on the door to alert the person inside. "Come in." A loud voice echoed from within the Hokage office. Creakshu pushed the door open and stepped inside, stopping momentarily to bow respectfully. "Hokage-sama, I, Hyuga, have returned from the Western Border Forces as ordered." Jonin must have had a tiring journey. Third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi chuckled warmly while pointing at the chair in front of his desk. "No need for formalities. Please have a seat." "Thank you for your consideration, Hokage-sama." Hyuga slightly bowed again before using his left leg to close the door behind him. He then strode forward and plopped himself down right in front of the third Hokage. "I've already read Sakamo's report. Your performance during the surprise attack on Hidden Sand Village was excellent." Hiruzen Sarutobi randomly pulled out a document and began skimming through it. I've read this report multiple times already. Shukun's achievements go beyond merely participating in the elimination of hidden sand villages. Celebrated Blossom. You personally eliminated the commander of the Eastern Sand Ninja Forces as well as several famed Sand Jonin. Truly impressive. This success was largely due to Jonin Mahiru's full assistance throughout. Shu stated calmly without changing expression. Although Mahiru Uchiha's Jonin status lacked proper recognition, Shu had no hesitation in raising the issue directly before the third Hokage. Mahiru. Maintaining his amiable smile, third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi appeared completely oblivious while flipping open another folder from his desktop documents. While Mahiru is indeed one of the rare prodigies to graduate from the Ninja Academy in recent years, with both promotion speed and personal accomplishments ranking among the top, according to Tsukumo's report, there seem to be some contradictions with what you've described. That's understandable too. Considering how battlefields change in an instant, Tsukumo-senpai needed to participate in actual combat himself, so some omissions in documentation are to be expected. When Shu spoke these words, both his tone and demeanor seemed genuinely understanding and cooperative. Almost like a complete contrast to Denzo's secret report, which painted him as a ruthless and unreasonable brute. The third Hokage studied Shu's unusually sincere expression for a long while, confirming that not even a hint of embarrassment showed during his speech. Needless to say, although Hyuga was still a relatively new Jonin who had recently earned his reputation through battlefield achievements rather than decades of immersion in Hidden Leaf Village's political circles, when it came to sheer nerve, Shu could hold his own even among Hidden Leaf Village's famously manipulative old foxes. As he thought this, third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't help picking up Shu's ninja file again. Indeed, his service record shows 2.5 years of frontline duty in the Land of Rain. If there really was someone backing him from behind the scenes. Third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi turned his gaze toward a small note attached inside the personnel file. The name written on the note was none other than Orochimaru. The one who had approved Hyuga's retreat to the village for rest and recuperation from the Rain Country front as early as October. However, according to a covert investigation conducted by third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, during Shu's service at the Rain Country front, his contact with Orochimaru had been strictly limited to mission-related coordination, with no record of any additional unusual interactions. Moreover, this investigation was based on intelligence compiled by special agents secretly deployed within the Rain Country Expeditionary Force by both Anbu and Root Division. In other words, if there was an error in the investigation, then only two possibilities existed: either our secret informants within the Expeditionary Force have turned traitors, or Shu and Orochimaru communicated in such secrecy that not even my best spies caught wind of it. Hokage-sama? Hyuga's Shu asked with a furrowed brow. Oh, I was just reviewing your past service records. Hiruzen Sarutobi quickly snapped back to attention, smiling as he spoke. Frankly speaking, Shu-san, the speed at which your strength has grown since returning to the village after your tour at the Rain Country front is absolutely mind-blowing. You flatter me, Hokage-sama. I owe everything to the main house. Shu replied with a smile, easily shifting the praise toward the main house. Without their guidance, I wouldn't be where I am today. Is that so? That's wonderful indeed. The third Hokage nodded with evident satisfaction. There's truly nothing more heartwarming than seeing the child of a dear departed friend grow into someone strong and capable. Thank you for your kind words, Hokage-sama. Shu gave a slight nod as well, though his tone remained flat, clearly showing no intention of continuing the conversation. Truthfully, he had long grown impatient with these tiresome and clumsy probes. How about joining Anbu? Seeing hints of Shu's growing impatience beneath his calm demeanor, the third Hokage decided not to beat around the bush anymore and extended his invitation directly. With your strength, you'd at least be qualified to lead your own squad within Anbu. Hokage-sama, I'd rather remain a lone falcon. Free to soar wherever the winds take me. Shu politely declined. A squad leader? That's all you're offering? Testing Jonin like this. Was there any Jonin who couldn't pass such a test? If Shu actually accepted, that'd be a miracle on par with pigs flying. I see. The third Hokage gave Shu's Hidden Leaf Village forehead protector a shiny, unbroken symbol on his brow. An expressive look, as if trying to peer through it to something deeper. Since you've returned this time, take good rest and recuperate. However, Kazuki Marubushi has been reassigned, so he'll be transferred out of your directly commanded squad. I have no objection, Hokage-sama. Shu nodded once again. However, I do hope Might Dewey can remain in my squad. Though his skills may not stand out, his dedication to daily training is admirable, and he's definitely worth nurturing. This isn't an issue. The third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi quickly recalled what he knew about Might Dewey. After thinking it over, he figured that Might Dewey, aside from his impressive taijutsu, didn't have much else going for him and wasn't worth much attention. He was more than willing to go along with it. Then it's settled. Hiruzen immediately made the arrangements. For now, the village won't assign you any additional long-term combat missions. However, since many experienced Chunin have been deployed for field operations, the village will soon hold a simplified Chunin exam for Genin who've completed 2 years of service. You'll serve as an examiner part-time. If you find any juniors worthy of your attention, you can request to mentor them directly. Besides, now that Miharu Uchiha has been promoted, Might Dewey is your only subordinate left. That doesn't make sense anymore. Hiruzen jotted down Hyugashu's next set of assignments onto a blank scroll and sealed it with the Hokage seal. Of course, if the Genin or Chunin you're interested in happens to be from a ninja clan, you must obtain their family's consent first. Additionally, considering Miharu Uchiha's special relationship with you, after her Jonin promotion she won't be assigned direct subordinates. Instead, you'll provide her with personal guidance. How does that sound? Fine, I'll go along with the village's plan. Though he wasn't particularly keen on playing silly ninja fighting games with a bunch of brats, Hyugashu agreed immediately when he found that the conditions offered by the third Hokage were even better than he had anticipated. Excellent. The third Hokage handed the mission scroll to Hyugashu. Go down and fetch Miharu Uchiha's Jonin promotion evaluation form. Chapter 88, Chain Reaction didn't expect the old fox to actually be this reasonable. After slipping into a brand new Jonin vest, Miharu Uchiha cheerfully hooked her arm through Hyugashu's as they strolled happily through Hidden Lee Village's commercial district. Although she didn't really have anything to buy, people just love showing off. Even if they've got nothing to buy. No different from mothers, Miharu was also a ninja, only unlike those vulgar little girls obsessed with clothes and perfume, what she wanted to show off was this dull-colored standard issue Jonin uniform. What else could a 16 or 17-year-old ninja boast about more than this? Probably because he has some unspeakable hidden difficulties. Hyugashu lovingly ruffled Miharu's thick, glossy hair that clung tightly to his arm as he softly spoke. Moreover, maybe in some area we don't even understand, the White Fang had placed tremendous pressure on him. Hey, guess that is good news after all. No need to argue with that annoying old fox, no need to say those insincere words that made her feel sick. Just because her partner went downstairs to fetch one form.